That means I can afford to release the promotion task at last. In the meantime, the subsystems have multiplied fast. More than 3,000 people bound now. Some were passed the seed by relatives and friends, some seeded in secret by me. Yu Family Village got special care, so Yu Hei and his whole family carry the system now. The man who had almost no time left has turned robust and hale. Between the body forging foundation establishment method, the old farmer's art, and my quiet help, I would not bet against him reaching the Dao Seed realm someday. His boys, Yu Gun and Yu Wei, have freakish martial talent and already touched the body tempering realm at 10 years old. The good days for you high and mighty families are ending. I give a cold little laugh and post the promotion task I have been sitting on. I frame it plainly. The world is full of injustice. The fairness system makes it kinder, and every system a host shares earns 200 energy points with no ceiling. The hosts who practically live inside the system spot the new listing and light up like festival lanterns. They have always agonized over how few points they could earn, how slow the daily drip was. The mall groans with divine techniques they can only stare at and want. The math sells itself. A seed costs 100 points and each bind pays 200, so every promotion nets 100 clean. That is a return of 100%, and pushing it to 100 people drops 10,000 points into their laps at once. In a heartbeat, they transform into system salesmen and hurl themselves at the work. The topic system promotion task torches the trending list. The discussion volume climbs so fast you can watch it move. One host bragging he already offloaded seeds to 10 people for 1,000 points, while the next scrambles not to be left behind. I check the back end and take a sharp breath. In 15 minutes, the bindings climbed by a full 1,000, and the count is still racing. Thank the heavens, I waited until my points crossed 100 million before opening the floodgate. Any earlier and I could not have covered the rewards. It costs a fortune, but every fresh host thickens my own harvest of points and deduction power. Only real touchable profit lights a fire under people like this. Offer them nothing, or worse, make them lose money, and not a soul will lift a finger. With the whole crowd promoting for me, I no longer have to trudge village to village handing out seeds myself, because one man's arms only reach so far. I stand, fix Little Yellow with a stern look, and ask whether he intends to go carousing in the brothels again. He barks twice, ears pricked, radiating pure wounded pride. I scoff and flick his forehead. I tell him the clinic is dying because of his antics, that if this keeps up we close, and that worst of all, my whole plan to gather body data has collapsed. From now on, I add, whatever coin he earns hauling goods gets handed over as room and board. He holds his head high and yips his objection, tail whipping side to side in outrage. It gets handed over regardless, I tell him, and he had better stop shaming me in front of the entire town. Out on the streets of Chongsan Town, the porters flick through the alleys faster than the eye tracks. The butcher's cleavers flash cold while their hands part meat like water. Every one of them is a host, bodies honed by the body forging foundation establishment method until even chopping looks like a martial form. Up on a high platform, a well-known merchant named M1 is bellowing that he is buying energy points. He calls out his rate, 1 point for 1 copper coin, and swears he will take as many as anyone can bring. The crowd doubts him loudly until one man steps up, scans M1's pay code, transfers 100 points, and walks off with coins in his fist. That does it. The onlookers erupt and surge the platform, beggars sprinting among them, everyone suddenly aware that points can become dinner. I stand in the churn of it and let myself think. Over the past month, the promotion has run wide open. The bound users vaulted past 3 million, with thousands more binding every moment. If each new host were not also a fresh spring of energy for me, I could never keep this pace. Even now, I am barely breaking even, spending only a trickle on my own deduction and closed-door work. I have to wait for the reserves to fatten before I open up. People are so starved for points, they would strap the system onto chickens and geese if they could. M1 is buying his with cash, and that pays off fast. But the day the whole town understands what a point is worth, his price is going to climb through the roof. Even so, this is a good thing, because it redistributes wealth through a side door I did not have to build. Common folk and even beggars have a new income, and that changes real lives. No more beggars will starve in these gutters when a handful of points can be turned into food. It is one small step toward remaking the world. But stack enough small steps together, and the ground itself shifts. I cannot promise everyone meat at every meal yet, but I can promise nobody goes to the grave empty. A thought sparks. What if I deduce and organize all the livestock and farming knowledge from my past life and drop it in the mall for free, then post research tasks on top of it? Between this world's crop of geniuses and its outright supernatural talents, they might grow something even better than what I remember. I could seed guidance across whole domains, from transport and grain to cement and electricity, and hang system tasks off each one. Greed alone would drag brilliant people into the labs. Under the right reward, there is always someone willing. And every bit of it cost me nothing but points. As long as a problem can be solved with energy points, it stops being a problem for me at all. I open the forum and the top trending post is a video titled, "A Youth Obtains the System and Takes His Revenge." I tap it. Inside, a young man charges alone into the Black Tiger gang of Jangyang County and cuts through them like wheat, wiping the whole gang out in the span of the clip. The text underneath tells me his name is So Mu-han, born to an ordinary family, the sole survivor after the Black Tiger gang butchered everyone he loved. He stumbled into the system and cultivated martial arts through it, watching his strength rocket up. Then he walked back to settle the debt in full. The comments are a bonfire of approval. Ordinary people cheering that the fairness system lets anyone learn real skill and repay their wrongs. Mixed into it is the newer, weary complaint that points are getting brutally hard to earn. Too many mouths and not enough to go around, they say, the rich hurling money at them. And one host bragging he ran off to another prefecture and raked in $1 million. That last part straightens me up. No wonder the host count detonated inside a single month, and no wonder the curve keeps steepening. The thing is jumping its own banks. At this rate, all of Gangneung Prefecture, and then whatever lies past it, gets swallowed soon. I close the system and look out at Chongsen Town, remade past recognition in 1 month, and a proud little smile finds my face. Under my hand, the changes ahead will only get more staggering, but the people I am dispossessing will not sit still, because the system has already begun eating their rule. The ones drowning in enough old sins to fail the binding will fight it hardest. It will not matter. The system is not theirs to switch off, and it spreads too fast to catch, so their struggling amounts to a mantis planting itself in front of a rolling cart. I spend a full day compiling everything I remember and everything I have deduced into an encyclopedia of daily life, then upload it to the mall for free. Under it I post a task, an open call for inventions. Anyone whose creation genuinely serves the public good earns a reward between 1 million and 100 million energy points. Scaled to the result. I set the ceiling that high on purpose, because a fat enough purse pulls brave people out of the woodwork. The task lands like a boulder in a still pond. It seizes the top of the trending list and the comments boil over. Everyone marvels that the reward is obscene and, better yet, that no field is off limits. An old craftsman tinkering in his shed and a farmer cross-checking my free encyclopedia both think they might finally set themselves up for life, maybe even reach immortal ascension. Far to the south, a Sinong sect elder named Munjagyum was crossing the world with his 2 disciples, Juwan and Simjiha. When they walked into Zhongyang County, the scene stopped all 3 of them cold. Simjiha broke first, telling her master that this county was uncanny. Every last person on the street seemed to carry martial arts. Juwan said the same thing gnawed at him. Along the whole road, he had not passed a single beggar, and he had not met one mountain bandit. Only peace. Meanwhile, wealthy men screamed themselves hoarse buying something called energy points he could not begin to understand. He lowered his voice and added that there were fighters here whose cultivation ran higher than his own. He asked whether the Jianghu had always hidden this many dragons in the mud, and what in the world this system was. Munjagyum had no answer, so he did what teachers do when they are lost. He stroked his beard and murmured that all things in the world conceal deep mysteries, and that if they simply observed as they went, the Tao would reveal itself. Before the words had cooled, a scene in the fields shrank his pupils to points. Several farmers were swinging hoes, as if the tools had wings, breaking and scattering a huge stretch of soil in a blink. Others skimmed the ridges light as men walking on waves, planting rice fast as phantoms. Their seedlings dropped into the mud in perfect rows like a heavenly maiden scattering blossoms. He blurted that it was impossible, that the Sinong sect had studied crops for generations and never witnessed anything like it. His disciples stood frozen, unable to swallow it. In everything they had ever learned, a Jianghu fighter who gained real skill went off to guard a household or run escort work. That paid far better than dirt and sweat, and almost nobody chose to stay a farmer. Yet here was a whole crew of clearly capable martial artists, some already at the innate realm, bent cheerfully over the patties. Even the Sinong sect, odd as it was for spending its days on medicinal herbs, still shoved the raw tilling onto its newest disciples. The sight of innate-level experts wading into the fields by choice shattered something in the 2 of them. When their master's outburst snapped them back, they asked each other whether they were dreaming. Zhou Wan rubbed his eyes and said helplessly that since all 3 of them saw it, It had to be real. Mun Jagyom realized he had lost his composure and coughed it away, then led them over to ask. He picked out a plain, honest-looking middle-aged man whose aura was restrained, and whose cultivation sat at the innate realm. He could not stop himself from asking why a man with such skill was content to farm. The man, whose name was Wang Chiol, looked startled enough to nearly drop his tool. Then he smiled simply and said they had it wrong, that he was no man of the Jianghu, only a peasant who grew crops. That answer struck the three of them as flat nonsense. A man plainly carrying martial arts was insisting he was an ordinary farmer. Mun Jagyom stepped in, reached out, and gripped the man's shoulder, meaning to haul him up and test him. He could not shift him a hair. He poured his grandmaster-level cultivation into it and pushed harder. Feeling the strain on his shoulder, Wang Cheol assumed they were comparing strength. He grinned, circulated the force exertion method he had learned from the martial canon, and jolted his whole body at once. A vast force erupted and threw Mun Jagyom stumbling backward. The elder caught his balance and stared in disbelief. He had just spent a grandmaster's power and not only failed to budge the man but got flung like a leaf. The farmer was plainly only at the innate realm, a whole major realm beneath him. Unless the man had buried his true cultivation and was secretly a great grandmaster, or something out of the celestial being realm. Wang Qiao hurried forward, worried, asking whether he was hurt. Mun Jagyom recovered and pressed him. He wanted to know for certain that this was no Jianghu man, and where on earth he had gotten such skill. Wang Qiao smiled honestly and threw up his hands. He really was no fighter, he explained, and every scrap of this came from the system, and he had only been cultivating a few months. Farming had gotten so much easier since. Then he guessed they must be out-of-towners. When Mun Jagyom asked, plainly baffled, what the system even was, Wang Qiao said only that the system was the system. The moment it left his mouth, Wang Qiao understood these three had never met it. Remembering that binding a newcomer earned him 300 energy points, he brightened right up. He told them he happened to have a system seed on hand, and that they would understand everything once they bound it. Mun Jagyom asked, startled whether they could really have the system too. Of course, Wang Qiao said, as long as they passed its approval. He pulled a seed from the maul and pressed it into the elder's palm. Mun Jagyom held the seed, hesitated a long moment, and bound it anyway. The interface ballooned open in his mind, and his eyes flew wide with disbelief. When he found the messenger and the forum inside, the shock crashed clean through his composure. He could only stammer that such a thing should not exist, that it was unthinkable, that it linked every person across any distance. Surely, he said, only immortals could have made it. He lost himself in the forum for a long stretch before dragging himself out to poke at the other functions. Then the mall opened before him, wall after wall of densely packed secret manuals, and he marveled out loud. The Dao Seed martial arts cultivation system was monstrous. Cultivating to its Dao Seed realm granted a 500-year lifespan, and even its lowly body forging foundation establishment method was terrifying. The Sanong sect's own techniques were pitiful beside it. The strange sights of Zhangyang County made total sense at last. Watching their master's face flip through surprise and open praise, Ju Wan and Sim Jiha itched with envy and asked whether they could have one too. Of course, Wang Chael said, light gathering in his palm around a seed etched with mysterious patterns. Anyone the system recognizes can bind. Once the two of them bound in, they finally understood why a master who had seen so much cried out like a child. Their own reactions ran even wilder, eyes huge. They babbled that with this they would know the affairs of the world without leaving the house, and that the mall's divine manuals made their hands ache with wanting. Wang Chel was not surprised in the least, since everyone came apart the first time. His own reaction, he admitted, had been worse than all three of theirs put together. Mun Jagyom swallowed hard, his stare nailed to the divine manuals. Any random cultivation technique in here, loosed into the Jianghu, could trigger a bloodbath. These ran shoulder to shoulder with genuine immortal cultivation techniques, and they demanded no immortal aptitude at all. His eye caught on the Greenwood Eternal Spring Art. It was a Dao Seed system technique that could carry a cultivator to the Dao Seed realm. Best of all, it was built on the wood element that meshed with his own Sinong sect method. To buy it, he needed energy points, and he did not own a single one. So once he worked out how points were earned, he sold every technique he knew, all but the Sinong sect's legacy, straight into the mall. He even threw in the medicinal herb knowledge he had painstakingly compiled himself. Had a last thread of sanity not held, he would have sold the legacy techniques too. The Sanong sect's legacy ranked first class in the Jianghu, yet against the mall it was not worth the breath to mention. perhaps not even the equal of that lowly body forging foundation establishment method. The name sounds like nothing, a mere trick for laying a foundation, but it is anything but ordinary. It grows faster the more people cultivate it, and it leads straight into an innate realm forged inside and out. That realm stands strong enough to match the Jianghu's current Grand Masters. It was the whole answer to why he, a full Grand Master, could not shift Wang Chel at the innate realm. His sales netted 130,000 points. After buying the first 3 realms of the Greenwood Eternal Spring Art, he had only 20,000 left, a full 100,000 short of the Dao Seed realm portion. Poor. He was simply too poor. Mun Jegyom had grown up inside the Shenong sect and risen to elder, and never once had he known the taste of having no money, until now. Suddenly he understood why the wealthy merchants were paying such prices for points. Points were scarce, and the system bred them agonizingly slowly. He had no idea how long he would wait to afford the technique. If others bought in and started cultivating first, he would be the one left behind, and in the Jianghu who does not burn to be first. He steadied himself, exited, and told Juwan and Simjiha in dead earnest that he had decided to stay in Jiangyang County. He would research and improve rice seeds and chase the system's grain task for more points. Juwan agreed at once that the Sunong sect's mastery of planting gave them a real edge. Better grain would earn heavy rewards, he said, and the reward was not a one-time thing, but would keep paying as long as they kept improving. Simjiha only groaned that they were too poor to afford a single manual and had to earn points fast. Scenes exactly like this one were repeating across every corner the system had touched. Meanwhile, a heavy piece of news tore through Ganyang Prefecture City. Baek Suyan, one of the 10 great young experts of the prefecture and ranked dead last at 10th, was going to challenge Go Bi, the man sitting at the very top. The word spread like a thunderclap. A dense crowd packed itself around the arena, everyone craning to study the 2 men and guess the outcome. The gambling dens filled fastest of all and threw open their betting lines. Most of the money poured on to Go Bi. Gamblers scoffed that Baek Suyan had lost to him only months back and could not have gained much since, and that Go Bai's family mystic ice-cold night saber was too strong to answer. A few still laid coin on the underdog, in case some lucky break had transformed him. Go Bai looked Baek Suyan over with open doubt, then let a confident smile spread. He asked why a man who had lost only months ago would challenge him again so soon. It was pointless, he said, because he could never win, and among the younger generation of the whole prefecture, he stood invincible. Baek Suyan smiled back, just as sure of himself. Anyone claiming to be invincible was only drunk on his own confidence, he answered. And anyone calling himself undefeated had simply never met a true expert. Today, he promised he would hand Go Bai his loss. Go Bai laughed coldly and reminded him that they both stood at the innate middle stage. In the same realm, he said, Baek Suyan could not beat him. Baek Suyan only raised an eyebrow and said that suited him fine, because he wanted to see exactly what the 2 of them were made of. Then Baek Suyan roared and moved. Golden light surged around him as he raised his palm and drove the blazing sunstar-shattering palm at Go Bi. The force seemed ready to set the sky alight. The strike condensed into the ghostly shadow of a great sun, its scorching wash bending the very air into ripples. Before it even arrived, Go Bai's pupils shrank. He had never expected his opponent to abandon his signature weapon for a palm technique he had never seen. The heat licking at his skin dropped a chill straight down his spine. With no time to think, he slashed out his mystic ice-cold night saber. Deep blue frost shimmered along the edge, and the frigid saber chi smashed head-on into the crimson palm energy. The ground fractured into a spider web as ice mist and sparks blew outward together. The pride of that saber, its extreme cold, melted under the blazing sun force like thin snow dropped into boiling water. Go Bai groaned low, the web of his thumb splitting, and staggered 3 steps back, his boot soles plowing furrows through the bluestone before he steadied. Baek Suyan came on like a rising tide, his palm shadows multiplying into a sky crowded with suns. Go Bai ground his teeth and swung to block, but the palm technique slid between real and illusion, impossible to read and impossible to dodge. His long saber tore free of his grip, drew a bright silver arc, and clattered down. A spear of golden light punched through him and flung him back like a kite with its string cut. He crashed down nearly 100 feet away, blood leaking from the corner of his mouth. He lay there dazed, unsure for a moment who he was or where. 10 moves. It had taken only 10 moves, and he had never touched the hem of the other man's robe. He forced himself up, eyes bloodshot, and roared that it was impossible. There was no way Baek Suyan had grown this strong. He was the one who should win, he snarled. So the other man must have used some filthy trick. Baek Suyeon only sneered that if he was weak, he should train harder. Slandering a man in front of a whole crowd was laughable, he said. Go-Bai had beaten him before purely because the Go family technique was more advanced, and now he could not lay a finger on him. The words drove Go-Bai into a fury so hot he coughed up a mouthful of blood. He spat that it was impossible, absolutely impossible, and swore he would win it back. He lurched upright to charge in on unsteady legs. A figure blurred in like a ghost. Go Chongchon, head of the Go family, appeared at his son's side with a cold face and tapped one finger against the young man's neck. Go-Bai's eyes rolled up as he folded into his father's arms. Go Chongchon swept Baek Suyeon with a blade-cold glance and turned to go. Son cradled against him. Baek Suyeon met that gaze with an easy, indifferent smile. Before long, he thought, even the father would be no match for him. He remembered how it had gone. Months back, after losing to Go-Bai, he had left Gangneung Prefecture City to travel and hunt down a technique strong enough to lift him. In Gyeongyang County, he stumbled into a system and traded for a peerless art out of its mall. Hard cultivation carried him straight from the innate early stage to the innate middle stage. His innate middle stage was nothing like the Zhenghu's ordinary version. It was the innate realm of the Dao Sieg martial arts cultivation system, far stronger than anything the old world knew. With the system still pushing him upward, even a grandmaster like Go Changchun might not put him down now. That was exactly why he ignored the man's threat. The onlookers stood stunned that Go-Bai had folded so fast. One big bearded man kicked a wooden post and swore through his teeth that he had bet 100 pieces of silver on Go-Bai, only to watch the fool fail to last 10 moves. Others simply gaped and asked how Baek Suyeon's strength had turned so monstrous, how that palm had come down like the sun falling out of the sky. A middle-aged man in a green robe named Yu Zhong shoved his way to the front. He announced loudly, on purpose, that he had the inside story. Baek Suyeon owed all of it to the system, he said, and that palm had been the blazing sunstar-shattering palm, bought straight from the system mall. When the crowd swarmed him demanding to know what this system was, Yu Zhong bellowed for everyone to relax. He had system seeds right here to give away free, he shouted. And once they bound in, they could buy any divine skill they liked. The crowd lit up and clamored for one. Real or fake, they wanted it. Baek Suyeon nearly boiled over on the sidelines. He had challenged Go-Bai for revenge, yes, but also to manufacture exactly this crowd so he could push his own seeds and earn points. Now a stranger had jumped in front of him to hand out seeds first, which was nothing but stealing his business. Just like that, the expert's dignity evaporated. Baek Suyeon plastered on a grin and shouted over the noise. Did they want to know how he got strong so fast? Then they should hurry to him. His seeds were the authentic ones, he promised, and binding one would make them as powerful as he was. The crowd instantly redirected and swarmed him instead. He could not stop smiling as he watched what looked like a tide of energy points rushing his way. Yu Zhong's face went dark and he roared that there was no difference between seeds. If they all clumped over there, the others would bind first. He shouted at them to seize the moment, because it was first come first served, and a single step late meant losing at the starting line. A few near the front grabbed seeds and bound in. One of them shot straight up with a wild yelp, gaping that the system was incredible, and the mall was stuffed with peerless divine skills. No wonder Baek Suyeon had climbed so fast, he cried, and giving away free seeds actually earned points. On the spot, the man did the arithmetic. If he sold his own techniques to the mall, he could buy seeds and then hand them out to earn points. His eyes blazed as he dumped his techniques for a credit of 1,110 points, bought seeds, and started passing them around. More people copied the model. The quickest-witted said nothing at all and took off running for other quarters of the city, reasoning that opening a fresh market beat fighting over this crowded one. The hosts scattered in every direction. Before long, the whole of Gangneung Prefecture City was gripped by a seed-distributing frenzy, every street and alley talking of nothing but the system. Inside the Go family compound, Go Chongchan had gathered the heads of the prefecture's other three great families, Song Kyung-ha, Ha Myung-chol, and Dang Ichun. Once they were seated, he swept his gaze across them. He asked what they made of the fairness system everyone was suddenly discussing. Song Kyung-ha's eyes flickered, and his voice carried admiration. The thing was genuinely miraculous, he said. Likely an immortal's work, packed with countless divine manuals that could lift a man's strength to rival a true cultivator. Ha Myung-cho agreed at once. Its Dao Seed martial arts cultivation system granted a 500-year lifespan to anyone who reached the Dao Seed realm, he added. The very blazing sun-star-shattering palm that beat Go Chungchun's son had come out of that store. Go Chungchun's face went dark instantly, and he pressed them. They all had to understand that a large-scale spread would finish the four families, he said, and asked whether that did not worry them. Dang Ichion asked, curious, what the man intended to do about it. Go Qiangshan sneered out his plan. He would seed rumors that binding the fairness system left a person open to possession and control, so people would unbind it of their own accord. Then the families could keep the system clamped in their own fists, since those ants did not deserve it anyway. Song Kyung-ha went quiet a beat, then probed gently. He complimented the idea, then asked whether Go Chung-chung truly understood the system, and whether he had not, perhaps, failed to bind it himself. Go Chung-chan's eyes paused and he shot back too fast that of course he had not failed to bind it. Dang Ichion, Song Kyung-ha, and Ha Myung-chol traded a single loaded glance. Dang Ichion spoke first, saying they would consider the proposal and take their leave for the day. He rose and walked out. Song Kyung-ga and Ha Myung-chol stood and followed, leaving Go Chung-chung's ugly expression behind them without a backward look. Once the three were well clear of the gate, Go Chung-chung hurled his teacup to shards and cursed that the idiots were not worth scheming with. Out past the Go family gate, Dang Ichion turned to the other two and suggested they add each other on the messenger for easy follow-up. They finished adding friends in moments and spun up a fresh group chat. The instant they were inside, Song Young-ha opened with the obvious. Go Chung-chung could not bind the fairness system himself, he said, and wanted to drag their three families down with him, which was wishful thinking. Ha Myung-chol agreed that the Go family had always thrown its weight around. Plenty of its disciples had surely done enough wrong to fail the binding, he said. This was an opening for the rest of them, because a family hoarding that many resources was overdue to step aside. Dang Ichion added that resources in the prefecture were finite. Whatever the Go family held, the rest of them lacked, so this was the moment to topple them. The fairness system had hit their families hard, he admitted, but their years of accumulation still put them ahead of the common folk, whose points they could always mop up with a little money. Song Kyung-ha said they had to expose Go Chung-chan's scheme so everyone could see his true colors. Ha Myung-chol answered that he had recorded the whole conversation. He would edit it and post it to the forum at once, so the world could get a good look at that face. Sunlight pours across the courtyard of the JC Medical Hall, while I sit cross-legged inside a faint halo of law. My 129,600 world seeds shine bright. 100 great Tao laws slide across their surfaces like silver snakes. After a long while, I open my eyes, breathe out a lungful of stale air, and feel the light sharpen behind them. With every new subsystem, my deductive power grows heavier. My hosts, desperate for points, have sold off oceans of precious secret manuals, and I have skimmed no small amount of inspiration from them. It is true, after all, that only by gathering the wisdom of the crowd does a man walk further. I open the forum, and a trending topic catches me, that Go Chung-chan's conspiracy has been exposed. I tap in, and the comments have already detonated. People are calling him frantic for spreading rumors to deceive everyone, all because he cannot bind the system himself. They have memorized his sneer about ants and swear they will never sell the Go family a single point. A family this arrogant, they reason, must have done enough evil to fail the binding, which is the whole reason he panicked. I read the wall of fury and laughed from the belly. Satisfying. Toppling the vested interests is already bearing fruit, and under the tide of the fairness system they cannot resist. They can only be carried along. The current functions are not perfect yet. I want to add new ones that bind people even tighter, and at the same time, quietly speed up how fast they burn their points. I have comprehended 100 great Tao laws now, so this is the moment for a top-to-bottom upgrade. I did not expect the spread to move this fast, already deep into Gangneung Prefecture. This world is vast and thinly peopled, its roads slow so goods and news crawl. The system's gift of talking across 1,000 mountains and rivers is a large part of why everyone is so hungry for it. These hosts really will do anything for points, which only proves once more that real interest is the only thing that lights people up. I open the back end and see the count of the bound sitting above 35 million, and I suck in a breath. The growth is obscene. Gangneung Prefecture holds at most 70 million people counting the hidden households. That means nearly half of everyone alive here already carries the system. Then I check the points and read 130 billion, and I let the tension out of my shoulders. With the subsystems multiplying, the harvest only accelerates. At least I no longer have to lie awake worrying the reward chest will run dry. Excitement flickers through me, a faint light rising off my body as the phantoms of 100 great Tao laws surface and sink. Now I can finally cut loose and deduce the great Tao, and let the fairness system show what it truly is. Before I dive fully into the great Tao, though, I decide to push the fairness system up to version 4 first. I want functions that let everyone climb their cultivation faster, and in the same stroke, spend their points faster. So the whole engine turns in a healthy loop. I reach out and connect every subsystem at once, waking their idle computing power. More than 30 million of them fire up together like 30 million cheat brains switched on, in a single instant. The tide of raw calculation crashes in. For a moment it feels as if there is nothing in this world I could not deduce and dismantle. I gather myself and pour everything into the work. Countless streams of data flashing and reordering before my eyes as the new version takes shape. When I finish walking through the Fairness System version 4, a satisfied smile settles on my lips. It is carried on the subsystem computing power matrix, built from those 30 million subsystems, and after 3 full days of deduction, the new build is finally whole. Beside the old model, version 4 is a total rebirth. Energy storage and conversion efficiency leapt 100-fold, and the deduction power took a qualitative jump. Past the raw performance, it gained a short video feed and map navigation, and the messenger now carries video and voice calls. Most of all, it gained 2 brand new functions. The first is the enlightenment space. For 100,000 points, a host can trade for a 10-second immersive enlightenment. That space is laced with the great Dao laws I have already comprehended, so it deepens the affinity between a host and the Dao itself. Better still, it links to the subsystem computing power matrix and dramatically quickens the speed of thought. It is a cultivation divine artifact in a host's pocket. For me, it matters just as much. Every insight a user earns in that space sinks straight back to me and helps me grasp the laws faster. It is like turning every host alive into my assistant, and I do not spend a scrap of my own energy to collect what they find. A clean win on both ends. The second is storage space. A host spends 100,000 points for a single cubic meter, and every cubic meter after that costs a full million. Once I confirm everything runs clean, I push version 4 out to every host with a thought. In an instant, the upgrade notice blooms across more than 30 million interfaces. Then I post a task in the task call to improve the map. Out in his paddy, Mun Jagyum was caked in mud, bent over the seedlings like the oldest of farmers, checking their growth. The upgrade notice popped up in front of him and he clicked to accept. The new interface stunned him so badly, his grip went slack, and he never noticed the hoe hit the dirt. He sucked in a breath and muttered that the enlightenment space was flat out a cultivation divine artifact. With enough points, he said, breaking through realms would be as easy as pie, but he was penniless and could not afford a single one of these wonders. He rallied fast, his gaze hardening again. The grain seed improvement was close to bearing fruit, he told himself, and when it landed he would finally have a mountain of points. He bent, picked up his hoe, and went back to the field. Song Kyung-ha stared at the freshly updated functions, nearly drooling with want. They were all treasures, he groaned, and he had nowhere near enough points. He had spent a fortune buying points these past days, but the Song family ran huge, its consumption bottomless. For the first time in his life, a man sitting on a billion-coin fortune felt his pockets were empty. It was absurd, he said out loud, that he, Song Kyung-ha, felt like a pauper for the very first time. He resolved to buy harder and send his family's disciples farther out to promote the system and run map tasks. Inside the system, points were strength, and a man without them was just a beggar in silk. That storage space, he added, was so magical he ached for it. A magic treasure out of immortal legend. He posted a task to the family group ordering everyone to go earn more points. Seo Songun stood wrapped in the aura of the innate realm peak and still could not hide the anxiety in his eyes. He clenched his fists and told himself he could not keep wasting time. He was already on the verge of breaking into the Divine Sea realm, and with the system's help, he believed he could soon climb from Divine Sea to the Dao Seed realm. But leaning only on the points the system bred on its own, there was no telling how many years he would wait to afford a Dao Seed realm technique. He remembered a line burning up the forum that in an age of fierce competition, one step slow means every step slow. And his chest tightened harder. They were right, he decided. If he did not fight forward now, he would lose completely. He turned on his heel and strode off, resolved to leave his hometown and promote the system elsewhere to earn the points and force his breakthrough. Scenes just like it were playing out in every corner of Gangnam Prefecture. Shop owners scrambled to reset their buying prices. Noble sons hurriedly packed to travel, and the tea houses emptied of idle gossip and filled with nothing but talk of earning points. The whole prefecture was wound tight as a spring. I stopped watching the world twitch and casually closed the system. A sweep of my divine sense tells me Little Yellow is nowhere in the medical hall. I rub my aching temples and mutter that after 3 straight days of deduction I am wrecked. Since the dog is out anyway, I decide to head to the Drunken Spring Pavilion myself for good wine, good food, and a massage after. Here I am, living worse than my own dog. I have worked hard for a long stretch, so what is the harm in enjoying myself once in a while? Call it a healthy balance of labor and rest. I straighten my robes, step out of the medical hall, and walk toward the pavilion. On the street, the changes the system has carved into Chongqing Town are everywhere. The beggars who once lined every corner have vanished, and so have the swaggering thugs and hoodlums. Everyone knows martial arts now, and who would risk doing evil only to get beaten to a pulp? People move with a light, easy step, all of them looking healthy and full of spirit. Clusters gather by the roadside arguing over the version 4 update. One man doubts the new enlightenment in storage spaces could really be so strong. Another snaps that after everything the system has done, he is still doubting. The first insists he only doubts because he is too curious and too broke to try it. Someone breaks in that the Im family, the Zhou family, and the Huang family are all buying points like madmen now, each outbidding the last. Another slaps his own leg in regret. He moans that early on, when it was 1 copper coin per point, he sold 100. And thinking of it now, it feels like robbery he committed against himself. An old man sighs with real sorrow. He tells the group that his son broke his left hand as a child, and they had no money then to treat it, so the hand is useless now. He does not know what realm a person must reach for it to heal. He wishes only that the mall held some cultivation technique that could restore the body and regrow a severed limb. The man beside him shakes his head and tells him to stop chasing impossible dreams. No such magical technique could exist, he says, and if it did, it would take an impossibly high realm to work. I stand off to the side and take it all in, and pride swells in my chest. Every one of these changes came from my hand, and it turns out remaking the world really does feel this good. Still, that old man's wish sticks. A technique for body restoration and limb rebirth might genuinely be worth deducing, because the world is full of the maimed, and a working art like that would rewrite countless fates at once. I stretch until my whole body cracks loose. After the attendants work the knots out of my back, I feel a refreshment I could not describe if I tried. The fatigue of 3 sleepless days swept clean away. No wonder Little Yellow keeps sneaking off here, even taking secret hauling jobs to pay for it. I wobble toward the front entrance of the Drunken Spring Pavilion, and the second I step through the door, I see him bounding over. Delighted, my stomach drops, my eyes dart around. I slam a stern expression onto my face and close the distance 2 steps at a time. I scold the little rascal that I had searched the whole pavilion looking for him, that I thought he had finally turned over a new leaf. And here he is the instant I walk out. Little Yellow skids to a stop, ears and tail drooping, and lets out 2 pitiful whines. I tell him to drop the wounded act and get home, and I give his head a light pat. That one careless pat is my undoing. With that sensitive nose of his, Little Yellow catches the trace of a woman's powder on me and erupts into furious barking. He bounces on all 4s, his drooping ears and tail springing bolt upright. I hurry to explain, stern-faced, that he should not bark nonsense, that I only went inside to find him and picked up a bit of scent by accident. Then I clock the sidelong looks from the crowd and the smothered snickering, and a wave of pure embarrassment rolls over me. Small mercy that Little Yellow cannot talk yet, because being screamed at by a dog with words would be so much worse. I fake my composure and shout for him to come home. I tell the whole street to see for themselves that I came here only to catch him and drag him back. Then I turn and stride for the medical hall without another glance at the still protesting dog. A few days of rest put my energy and spirit fully back, and I decide to deduce a set of protective divine abilities. With my first real grip on the Great Tao laws, and the subsystem computing power matrix behind me, I am more than able to build divine abilities out of the laws I hold. Their power will be thin at first, but as my understanding deepens, I can keep sharpening and strengthening them. I lay my foundation on the law of time, the law of space, the 5 elements laws, and the yin and yang laws. Then I fuse the others in to forge abilities for attack, defense, healing, and movement. The point is to turn raw law power into things that actually bite in a fight. Day after day, I study the laws and shape the abilities. And after a long grind of trial and failure, a whole series finally comes together. The 5-colored divine light I model on the famous ability of the legendary Gongsun. His 5-colored light could reportedly sweep even a saint aside, a terrifying thing. Mine rests on the 5 elements laws and the law of space, the power of the 5 elements turning without pause. Any magical artifact or living creature caught inside those elements can be drawn straight into the ability's own space, a supreme method for trapping an enemy. The great 5 elements destruction, divine light, and the great yin-yang destruction divine light come next. The first reverses the mutual generation of the five elements. The second overturns the balance of yin and yang. Each erupts in raw destruction like a chaotic torrent birthing a world, grinding everything it crosses to dust. The yin-yang taiji diagram takes the yin and yang laws as its heart. Its black and white fish turns slowly inside the void realm as the two chi braid and flow. It can swallow all things into the diagram and dissolve them, or set an unbreakable barrier against attack. The time-space divine art fuses the wonders of the law of time and the law of space. My figure moves like a ghost, quick as lightning, even short-hopping through space itself, so I can advance or retreat on a battlefield with nothing to guard against it. The heaven and earth creation technique is the crowning fusion of time, yin and yang, five elements, and life. It is a holy art of healing and recovery, and once released it feels like creation reborn, mending even the gravest wound in moments. My grasp of the laws is still shallow, so none of these are earth-shaking yet. I will have to keep perfecting them and feeding them power over time. As the law light around me thins and fades, I open my eyes and land right on Little Yellow feasting a short way off. I wave a hand and a streak of five-colored divine light shoots at his food bowl. In a blink, the bowl and everything in it vanish without a trace. He stares at the bare ground, stunned, then barks in a panic and starts running frantic circles around the spot. Grinning, I flick my wrist and the bowl drops back into place. The instant he trots up happily, the light flashes again and it is gone once more. After several rounds, he finally works out that I am toying with him, and he barks straight at me, his fluffy tail trembling with rage. I laugh and pour it on, making the bowl appear and disappear more than 10 times running. His fur stands fully on end, and he bounces and spins in place, wild with frustration. Enjoying his fury, I give one grand sweep of my hand, and the five-colored divine light swells and pulls Little Yellow himself into the ability's space. I nod, pleased with how cleanly it takes him, then release him. As the light scatters, he plops onto the ground in a heap. I squat and pat his bristling back, telling him to settle down and go eat, that I was only testing a divine ability I just built. His eyes dart around, and then he barks in sudden excitement, tail carving urgent arcs through the air. I ask, genuinely startled, whether he actually wants to bind to the fairness system, and I go on guard at once. A dog this rowdy could cause a real disaster with the system in his paws. I demand he lay out exactly what he means to do with it. He seems to have rehearsed this, raising his voice into a torrent of barking, claws scratching at the ground for emphasis. I translate it back to him. He wants to lean on the system to learn and cultivate faster, so he can break into the divine sea realm sooner and finally speak. I eye him with deep suspicion, since it is genuinely hard to believe this dog suddenly loves study, and yet the reason, turned over a few times, does hold together. After a moment, I tell him seriously that I will let him bind, but only on terms. He has to cultivate in earnest and reach the divine sea realm as fast as he can. If he fails, I will uninstall the whole thing, and under no circumstance is he ever to reveal on the system that he is a dog. He nods over and over, ears rigid, eyes swimming with flattery, tail beaten into a blur. I flick a special system seed off my fingertip, and it sinks into the space between his brows. Once I confirm he is bound in and is buried in learning the functions, I leave him to it, and turn away. Out in Gangyang Town, on the border where Jiangyang Prefecture meets Gangyang Prefecture, a great grandmaster named Seo Wang came home. He was the 8th-ranked expert of the whole Jin state, back from years of wandering. As he walked the streets of his hometown, he saw a young man busily handing out system seeds while the townsfolk scrambled after them with fanatical eyes. Seo Wang's face went cold on the spot. His years on the road had made scenes like this all too familiar. Evil cults using slippery tricks to bewitch people's hearts and rip families apart. He thundered at the young man, demanding what audacity let him spread a cult in Gangyang Town and deceive its people. Did he not know this was Seo Wang's own hometown? The shout cracked out like a thunderclap and snapped the fanatical crowd back to their senses. The young man distributing seeds, Seo Songgan, was startled too. He looked up in confusion and asked whether the newcomer meant him. Seo Wang said he meant exactly him, a cultist running wild in Gangyang Town who had not even asked whose ground he stood on. Today he promised the boy would taste his power, and he stepped forward with clenched fists. Seo Songgan raised an eyebrow and looked the man over, surprised. So this was Seo Wang, the 8th expert of the Jin state. The great hero had it all wrong, he said, because this was no cult, only a man giving away seeds. Seo Wang snorted with contempt that he had seen plenty of smooth-tongued cultists, and no amount of eloquence would save this one today. The townsfolk pressed forward to vouch for the young man, insisting he really was only handing out seeds and truly was no cult. Their perfect unison only made Xiao Wang's temples pound, because it looked exactly like the bewitched followers he had seen before. More certain than ever that these people were spellbound, killing intent surged through him. Without another word, he swung a fist at Xiao Sangan. Xiao Sangan's face turned solemn, but excitement flashed underneath it. He had only just broken into the Divine Sea Realm and had been itching for a chance to test himself, and a great grandmaster made the perfect sparring partner. He gave no ground and threw a punch straight into the incoming blow. The two forces met with a dull, thunder-deep concussion, and the onlookers scrambled back in fright to clear a space. The two men traded a single grim look and clashed again, fist shadows flying, collision after collision rolling out like continuous thunder. Terrifying power spilled in every direction and split the ground with one ugly crack after another. Both of them kept enough control to spare the commoners around them. Then a figure was hurled through the air and slammed into the earth. It was Xiao Wang, spitting a mouthful of blood, staring at Xiao Sangan in pure disbelief. He could not accept that a young man not yet 20 had just beaten him. Xiao Sangan drew his palms back and stood still. He thanked the great hero for the match and repeated that he was no cultist, only a man giving out seeds. He suggested the man try binding one himself, since it might carry his cultivation higher, and tossed a seed over. Xiao Wang caught it, hesitated, and decided to do as the young man said and bind the system just to see what all of this was. The instant it took, his eyes flew wide, and his mouth fell open. He could not stop exclaiming that the system was astonishing, stuffed with divine techniques and secret manuals, and he cried out over and over as he raced through the interface. Now at last he understood why the people of Gangyang Town were so fanatical, and how a man this young carried such cultivation. With a system like this, he thought even a pig might cultivate itself into a flying divine pig. He had prided himself on crossing the Jin state and its neighbor countries with a wide and worldly knowledge, and yet he had never once seen or even heard of the thing in front of him. Without a word, he uploaded every technique he owned to the mall to sell, then spent the points on the 9-yang heaven-burning art. The moment the manual bloomed in his mind, he gasped. The technique was simply too powerful, and the Dao Seed martial arts cultivation system behind it was more unheard of still. He wondered what kind of genius had built a cultivation system like this. It was so unlike traditional immortal cultivation, demanding no aptitude and open to anyone, its final ceiling set only by a person's own effort and points. Then he looked at his remaining balance of under 80,000 points, and a bitter thought surfaced, that a poor wretch is not worthy of cultivation. Poor. Too poor. He needed a mountain of points. All at once it clicked. This was exactly why Xiao Sangan stood so high yet kept desperately handing out seeds in the street. The young man was starved for points too. Xiao Wang got to his feet fast, threw Xiao Sangan an apologetic look, and cupped his fists. He had been offensive just now, he said, and begged him not to hold it against him. Xiao Sangan waved it off with a magnanimous hand. No one could be blamed for not knowing, he said, and the great hero had only been thinking of his fellow villagers. Xiao Wang nodded, then turned to the surrounding crowd and bellowed at the top of his lungs. He too had free system seeds, he shouted, and anyone who wanted one should hurry over and take it. Whether handing out seeds cost a great grandmaster his dignity did not trouble him at all. What was a great grandmaster's pride even worth, measured against points? Xiao Sangan's lips twitched, and he grumbled inwardly that yet another competitor had shown up. Refusing to be outdone, he raised his own voice and threw himself back into distributing seeds with even more fervor. Somewhere in his paddy, Munjagyom's face was flushed red with laughter. Ignoring the mud coating him, he danced along the ridge of the field, whooping that the rice seed improvement had succeeded and the yield had come in at a full 1,000 caddies an acre. After so many days and nights, he crowed. It was finally done. Juwan's voice shook with excitement, his eyes fixed on the golden ears of rice. Sim Jiha was more thrilled still, hopping in place with her braids swinging. Now they could claim the reward, she said, and with so many points their future cultivation was secure. Munjagyom wiped the sweat from his face. First they had to upload the cultivation video, the experimental data, and the methods to the system task hall, he told them. Because once the review passed, a massive haul of points would be theirs. The three exchanged a look and sprang into motion, eager to submit. I am lying stretched out in a rocking chair savoring the afternoon, when a system notification chimes. Someone has completed the rice seed improvement task. I check it once with my divine sense, confirming through the uploaded video, data, and methods that the task really is done. Then I cross-check it against the back-end monitoring and find the reality matches the submission perfectly. I sit bolt upright, my whole expression turning grave. Food is the first necessity of the people. Only once food and clothing are settled can everything else grow. And for me, a man who means to overturn this world and rewrite its rules, food matters more than almost anything. With a high-yield rice seed like this, the transformation of the world only accelerates. I look over the profiles of Munjagyom and his two disciples and praise them under my breath. The Sinong sect truly does have real skill. An achievement like this deserves a heavy reward, a system-wide commendation to set the example for everyone, and a flat grant of 100 million energy points. This rice, I decide, will be named Munjagyom rice, so that both the tangible profit and the honor land in full. Fame and fortune should arrive together and pull far more people into creation and invention. With that settled, I set about writing the system commendation notice. A commendation notice bloomed inside the Fairness System Mission Hall, wreathed in auspicious clouds and radiant color. A thread of celestial music played beneath it. It congratulated Munjakyan, Juwon, and Shimjiha for cultivating a strain of rice that yielded 1,000 pounds per acre. The system named the strain Munjakyan rice and awarded them 100 million energy points, urging them to develop better crops still. The news tore through the more than 80 million system hosts in a single breath. Within moments, it sat at the top of the trending lists on both the forum and the video feed. The comment sections drowned in one collective roar of envy and awe, half the hosts stunned that a mere invention paid out 100 million, the other half vowing to start inventing too. Munjachian and his two disciples stared at the notice with flushed faces and trembling hands. 100 million energy points, plus a public commendation on top, was more than they had ever dared to dream. Munjachian had once carried a little fame. At his peak, though, perhaps 100,000 people had known his name, and now every system host across the realm knew all three of them. He told the two of them, loud with excitement, that they had to keep working. They would breed even better seed and push Munjachian rice into every corner they could reach. Juwon and Shimjiha answered in unison that they would, calling him master. Then Shimjiha's eyes lit with a sudden idea. He said the three of them alone were limited. If every disciple of the whole Sinong sect bound to the system, their cultivation would leap forward, and far more hands could research the crops together. Munjachian seized on it at once, nodding hard. They would finish the rice promotion first, he said, then rush back to the Sinong sect to bind everyone and mobilize the entire order. To men who now measured time and energy points, every idle hour was a loss. 3 months later, inside the Sinong sect, Munjachian and the two returned from the fields without pausing to rest. He could barely wait to lay the system before sect leader Li Hyun and the 6 elders. When their faces filled with doubt, he stopped explaining and simply exchanged 7 system seeds, handing them over to bind. They complied half in disbelief. The instant the interface unfolded, the system functions and the profound cultivation techniques stocked in the mall came into view. Every one of them went wide-eyed with shock and wild joy. Li Hyun stared at the mall's techniques, his breathing gone ragged, and then he slammed the table. He declared he would make a decision that betrayed his own ancestors. The whole sect would upload and sell every cultivation technique it owned, legacy techniques included, and convert all of it into energy points. He ordered the disciples thrown fully into crop research and sent people out to spread the system everywhere so the sect could seize the moment and profit. The 7 elders echoed their agreement, and not one objected to selling the legacy techniques. In their hearts, they knew the sect's own methods were nothing beside the top-tier secret manuals in them all. While their techniques still held any value, cashing them in fast was the wise move. If those methods became worthless in the system's eyes, or someone else uploaded them first, the loss would be brutal. These were old veterans steeped in the martial world for decades. And interests like these they grasped at a single glance. I am somewhere else entirely, standing over Little Yellow, with my palms sweating. All this stretch of time, with the system feeding him, Little Yellow's strength has climbed in leaps. Right now he is breaking through into the Divine Sea realm. A dazzling yellow light erupts around him. A powerful aura spreads out and snaps back under restraint. Then he slowly opens his eyes and calls out to me, "Master," in a voice I have never heard from him before. I am ridiculously excited, telling him he has finally reached the Divine Sea realm and can actually speak. He crows that he really can talk now, then goes bouncing and circling around me, tail whirling like a propeller. I kill my own smile fast and warn him, dead serious, that he can never speak carelessly out in the open. If someone mistakes him for a dog demon and puts him down, That is the whole tragedy right there. He shrinks his neck in fright, ears drooping, and swears he will keep his mouth shut outside. Mischievous as he is, the little glutton has never once let me down when it counted. I tell him to go stabilize his realm first. Once he leaves, I slump into my rocking chair to scroll the video feed in the forum, out of pure boredom. Then a clip snaps me upright, my gaze sharpening like a hawk's. It shows a barren mountain out in Jangyang Prefecture, and through the shaking camera I make out a tomb sheathed in runes. I stroke my chin and mutter that a cultivator's burial site really does look like exactly this, a hot light kindling behind my eyes. But I smother the urge just as fast, telling myself there is no rush and I should watch a while first. By now, with the subsystem computing power matrix carrying the load, I have deduced 512 Great Tao laws out of the martial arts secret manuals I have gathered. That leaves me 2,488 short of 3,000. The so-called 3,000 Great Tao laws is only a rough figure, though. In truth, the laws of this world are as vast as the sea, far more than 3,000. If I could get my hands on some genuinely profound cultivation secret manuals, I might comprehend far more, since the great Tao hidden inside cultivation manuals runs deeper than anything in ordinary martial arts. At the world-saving medical hall, I look at the gaudy floral pants stretched over Little Yellow and feel my brow twitch. I tell him the cultivator's tomb is genuinely dangerous, and that he would be better off staying at the hall. He lifts his head, tail wagging, eyes full of resolve, insisting that with him along he can definitely help. Helpless, I try another angle and ask if he can at least take off the flowery pants, since dressed like that he is far too eye-catching. A dog in floral pants is a walking eyesore. Standing next to him guarantees every head in the crowd turns. He tilts his head and refuses outright, righteous as anything. He informs me that he learned from 2 dog etiquette manuals that he must strive to be a dog of manners and style. One was titled How to be a Cultured, Moral, High-Quality 3-Virtue Dog. The other, How to Become a 3-Good Model Dog. I have nothing left to say. After a long pause, I can only grind out that he is right, and we may as well go. The reason I am handling this myself is simple. The current crop of system hosts is still far too weak. Pressing a cultivator's technique and manual away would be hopeless for them, and most could not even get through the tomb's front door. If I want the immortal cultivation secret manual inside, the only sensible move is to go in person. Janghyang Prefecture, where the tomb has surfaced, is already packed shoulder to shoulder. I had hoped to slip into the crowd unnoticed, but Little Yellow in his floral pants is a walking billboard in full color. The surprised, curious, prying stares from every direction feel like fine needles pricking me all over. After a while, I settled down anyway. With a dog like him drawing eyes for months, I am practically numb to it by now. I sigh inwardly and accept it, because a man has to endure his own dog no matter how ridiculous. I sweep the crowd with my divine sense, and there are well over 1,000 people here. Most are system hosts who rushed over on the rumor of the tomb, all nursing dreams of getting rich overnight. Some hope to find an immortal technique to cultivate, others plan to sell it straight to the system mall for a mountain of energy points. Still others reason that the Tao Seed martial arts system has only been built out to the Tao Seed realm, so its ceiling is uncertain, and immortal cultivation feels the surer bet. The longing for immortal cultivation has piled up across millions of years, and that pull does not reverse in a day. I also spot Xiao Sangan, So Muhan, Baek Suyan, and Seo Wang among the crowd. Every one of them has already stepped into the Divine Sea realm. 3 of the Jin State's top 10 experts have come as well. There is the 3rd-ranked Sword God, his sword Qi reined in but edged with hidden menace. There is the 5th-ranked Spear King, planted on his weapon, his aura surging like a rainbow. And there is the 10th-ranked Cloud Dream Fairy, So Wandang veiled in gauze with a cold immortal Qi swirling around her. All 3 have reached the Great Grandmaster realm, and none of them has bound a system. I look up and study the tomb carefully. The formation patterns wind and interlace across the burial mound into a protective array. Through it I confirm at a glance that this is indeed a cultivator's tomb. An earthquake must have cracked one corner open and let it be found. A faint light screen flickers at the fracture, and the many scars of past attacks show that someone has already tried to break the formation. Damaged as it is, the array still stubbornly guards the tomb, and has not been breached. Then Xiao Wang leaps up, his figure rising to hover in midair, and shouts to the crowd. They have all come from afar for this cultivator's tomb and the immortal technique inside, he calls out. But the formation still stands and the tomb remains sealed, so only by breaking the array together can any of them enter. The sword god agrees at once, his sword intent surging as he lifts his sword fingers and asks everyone to lend their strength. The Spear King answers that this is exactly how it should be. Then he grips his spear, steps forward, and drives it into the formation with a blaze of spear light. At that, everyone attacks, so Wandang waves a jade pale hand and sends her true chi coiling out as silk ribbons. Seo Sungan's palm crackles with thunder as he strikes. Seo Wang unleashes the nine-yang heaven-burning art, his fist booming toward the array like a rising sun. The rest are not to be outdone, and fist power, palm winds, saber energy, and sword chi hammer the light screen like a storm of rain. My own gaze fixes on one faint flaw in the pattern. I channel my true force and strike it with a single palm. The light screen shatters inch by inch, brilliance bursts outward, and the whole array dissolves into drifting motes of starlight. The moment it breaks, Seo Wang, the sword god, and the others flicker and shoot toward the tomb like arrows loosed from a string. Someone yells that the formation is down, and over 1,000 people surge forward, shoving and jostling toward the opening. I take my time and walk. Beside me, Little Yellow jumps with anxiety, barking while firing messages at me through the system messenger, begging me to hurry before every treasure is snatched away. I answer him calmly. A cultivator's tomb ringed by an outer formation is bound to be crammed with traps inside. The ones charging ahead are conveniently scouting the path for us, and even if someone grabs an immortal technique, we can simply take it back. He gets it instantly, stops fretting, and pads along at my side with his floral pants swaying at every step. Not long past the entrance, the sight ahead makes my scalp prickle. Arrows thick as a bull's rim pack the corridor, their cold tips glowing an eerie green. Dozens of corpses hang pinned to the stone walls, blood congealing into dark pools below, and the air reeks of it. Little Yellow's fur stands on end, and he shivers, because arrows like these would maul even a divine Sea Realm cultivator. He tells me, admiringly, that my wisdom saved us, and that these people cleared the mines on our behalf. I give a non-committal grunt, sweep him up in a gust of true force, and fly us deep into the passage. Past that murderous stretch, we come into a broad burial chamber with a high vaulted ceiling. The instant we enter, wisps of illusory power slide into the sea of consciousness like spirit snakes. The space-time realm keeps my mind clear and untouched. I look around, and the people who came in ahead are already unraveling. Some stand frozen with dull, empty eyes. Others slash wildly at nothing but air, their shrill screams tangling with the whistle of blades. Right then, Little Yellow lets out an intoxicated cry beside me. He praises some phantom for a superb technique and promises this master will reward it richly later. I glance down to find him squinting, tail wagging in bliss, floating on air. A vein throbs at my temple. I condense a thread of true force at my fingertip and drive it precisely into the center of his brow, and the illusory power wrapped around his soul dissolves in an instant. He blinks up at me, all guilt, asking what just happened to him. Then he catches the chaos of people either raving or standing stunned, his tail going stiff as he yelps that this must be an illusion formation. I give a cold grunt of confirmation. I study the mess ahead and my brow furrows, because counting on this bunch to scout the way is clearly a dead end. Still, I cannot just stand here and let them all die. These people are green, tender leeks, ripe for the harvesting. No, wrong. They are my beloved co-workers and sworn brothers, and I need them alive to keep generating value for my future enterprise. With that settled, I lift into the air, my gaze raking the chamber while my mind races through the deduction. It pins down the illusion formation's core. A moment later, I strike out 4 consecutive palms in 4 directions. The array shatters, the pervasive illusory power thins and drains away, and the crowd that had fallen into madness slowly surfaces back to clarity. Voices rise in confusion, one demanding who cut these wounds into him, another insisting he had just obtained an immortal technique and was on the verge of immortal ascension. I hang suspended above them, looking down at the restless mass. In that brief span, the party of 1,000 has thinned to a little over 800. More than 200 lives simply winked out, a scene grim enough to turn the stomach. I raise my voice and tell them to be quiet. They were snared in an illusion formation, I say, and the array is broken now, so any who still wish to press deeper may go on. The clamor cuts off and every face tips up toward me. So Wantang glides forward from the crowd and bows deeply. She thanks me for saving her life and promises to repay me with all her strength should I ever have need. A flicker of surprise moves through me. Divine Sea Realm men like Seo Wang and Seo Sungan, and great grandmasters like the Sword God and the Spear King, all walk through the illusion untouched. Yet So Wantang herself, a great grandmaster, was caught in it. It means her mind carries a flaw, because a resolute great grandmaster near perfection should have crossed an illusion of this grade without trouble. I answer her indifferently, telling her not to dwell on it, that I simply had no wish to watch so many people die for nothing. The rest snap out of it and heap thanks on me, their flattery pouring in like a tide. One swears my peerless skill guarantees I will claim an immortal technique and ascend. Another declares that the seat of the Jin State's martial leader belongs to me by right. I stand with my hands behind my back and feel the corner of my mouth curl into a smug little arc. This martial world crowd flatters as smoothly as any court official. No wonder those old emperors doted on their sycophants, since praise really does go down easy. I raise a hand and press down slightly, and the noise dies at once. I tell them to set the pleasantries aside, that pressing on is what matters, and I stride ahead with little Yellow strutting pompously at my side. The winding passage soon carries the bright clash of metal to my ears, and I quicken my pace toward it. Turning a corner, I find a tomb chamber flung wide. Seo Songan, Seo Wang, and the others are locked in a fierce fight with 8 bronze humanoid puppets. 2 more bronze humanoid puppets lie broken on the floor, freshly wrecked. The puppets gleam with a dull metallic sheen, their eyes crimson as blood, and remarkably they carry the strength of the Foundation establishment realm. The group holds the upper hand but cannot land a quick kill, and the price is showing. The Sword God's shoulder is torn and leaking blood. The Spear King's footwork has gone ragged, his waist is wounded, and his blocking arms will not stop shaking. Catching sight of me leading the others in, the Spear King spins to deflect a strike and bellows for everyone to attack together. Only by smashing these bronze lumps, he shouts, can they enter the chamber. As one, every gaze swings to me, as if waiting on my word. The Spear King's pupils shrink, and I can read the storm behind his eyes, the question of who this young man is that even so Wandang follows his lead. I look over the deference on their faces, my mouth twitching, and answer with a single word, fine. Before the sound fades, I have already blurred into an afterimage, appearing before the Spear King in a blink. My palm slams flat into a bronze humanoid puppet's chest. Thunder shakes the chamber, dust rains from the ceiling, and the puppet flies off like a cut kite to crater the stone wall in spiderweb cracks before going still. After that, my figure flickers ceaselessly, weaving between them, every palm carrying the weight of a thunderclap. Wherever my palm wind reaches, the bronze humanoid puppets burst apart. In an instant, all 8 Foundation Establishment Realm puppets are so much scattered scrap. The Spear King, Seo Wang, the Sword God, and the rest suck in sharp breaths. They have traded blows with these puppets, and know their strength is no weaker than their own, perhaps stronger. Yet, I dropped each one with a single palm. Which means, of course, that none of them could weather a single palm from me either. That realization floods every eye that turns my way with raw awe. Even so, Wandang and the others who entered alongside me stare in shock and admiration. The Spear King recovers first, cups his fists, thanks me, and asks how he should address me. I wave it off, telling him casually that my name is Yu Il, that we are all here for treasure, and that there is no need for ceremony. My gaze drifts over the wreckage littering the chamber, and an idea stirs. The materials of these puppets are quite good, and they could well come in handy later. With a lazy wave of my hand, the 10 bronze puppets lift into the air, streak toward me, and vanish into the system storage space in a flash of light. So Wandang, the Sword God, and the others without a system cry out at the sight, faces full of shock. Meanwhile, Seo Wang, Seo Sangan, and Baek Suyan, who already carry systems, only pause a beat before catching on. They understand that I too am a system bearer, and that my storage space is a marvel. On the spot, they resolve to unlock the storage space the moment they have enough energy points. I smile and tell them it is only the system's storage space and nothing worth marveling at. The non-system crowd does not press, treating it as my private affair. I stride to the heavy stone door of the main tomb chamber and look it up and down. After a moment, I lift my palm, true force gathering like a tide, and strike. The blast shakes all 4 walls and rains down dust as the door swings open. From the chamber beyond comes a grinding series of mechanical sounds. I stand at the threshold as a cold, gloomy aura rolls out to meet me. At the very center of the burial chamber sits a giant sarcophagus sheathed in runes, but that scalp-tightening grind of gears does not come from it. Following the noise, I find 2 golden humanoid puppets on either side of the chamber, each standing a full 7 feet, slowly rotating their joints as their dark red eyes flare to life. Like ancient guardians waking from long sleep, they advance on the entrance with heavy mechanical steps. Baek Suyan goes pale in a heartbeat, his voice trembling as he blurts that these golden humanoid puppets are nothing like the bronze humanoid puppets. The Spear King's knuckles whiten around his weapon. Xiao Wang and the rest wear the look of men facing a great enemy. The bitter bronze humanoid puppet fight still fresh in their minds. The oppression pouring off the golden humanoid puppets makes the gulf in strength plain without a single blow traded. And against them, the bronze humanoid puppets were mere ants. Even after everything I showed them, unease flickers through the crowd, and I can feel them wondering whether I can truly stand against two of these things. Someone even whispers that maybe they should retreat first. Little Yellow barks anxiously and messages me through the system messenger, asking if I can handle the golden humanoid puppets or whether we should fall back and return once we are stronger. I tell him not to worry. Although the two of them carry golden core realm strength, I can manage them, and this is a fine chance to test my divine ability. Then I wave everyone back and tell them I will deal with these two myself. I say nothing more and stride forward. I had meant to use the 5-colored divine light to draw the puppets into my divine ability space, but I changed my mind mid-motion. Trapping them only means releasing them later to finish the job, so it is cleaner to simply kill them here with the Great 5 Elements Destruction Divine Light. I sweep both hands out, and 2 beams rip forth like lightning, driving straight at the 2 golden humanoid puppets. A deafening roar erupts, the sound waves rolling out with the weight of a world-ending punishment fallen from the 9 heavens. Inside that dazzling 5-colored blaze, the 2 golden core realm puppets never even manage a defensive move. Their upper bodies disintegrate under the terrible force, while their mangled lower halves clatter to the ground in a cloud of dust. I am honestly caught off guard. I had not expected this divine ability to be so staggering that even golden core realm puppets could not survive a single strike. The sight, so far past anything they imagined, freezes Xiao Wang, the Spear King, So Wandang, and the others where they stand, mid-retreat, eyes wide with disbelief. Sharp gasps break out everywhere, and I can tell their minds have gone blank. They cry out that this is too much, wondering aloud what my cultivation could possibly be, whether I am a cultivator, whether I have already broken through to the Dao Seed realm. Little Yellow, floral pants and all, hops and skips circles around me, messages spilling one after another through the system messenger. He gushes that I am incredible, and begs to learn whatever divine ability that was. I answer as I walk, that it is the Great 5 Elements Destruction Divine Light, and that his cultivation is nowhere near high enough to learn it. I step into the chamber, sweep the golden humanoid puppet wreckage into the storage space with a flick of my hand, and confirm nothing else lurks before fixing my eyes on the sarcophagus. I study it hard, deducing and unraveling the runes carved across its lid, and in a blink I have the answer. It is a corpse refining formation. The cultivator sealed inside abandoned the immortal path and refined himself into an undead zombie. Little Yellow's fur shoots up and he barks at the sarcophagus, messaging that something is wrong with it and that a cold, powerful energy is coiled inside. I tell him I know. The zombie-refined cultivator is in there and he should step back while I handle it. Then I turn to So Wandang and the others and say gravely that the tomb's owner refined himself into a zombie, for the sake of longevity. Everyone should retreat, I tell them, because I am about to open the coffin and destroy it. They gasp and scramble backward, calling out that they are moving right now. I flick a finger, a sharp burst of finger energy shrieks out, and the coffin lid goes spinning away. Corpse energy rises from the sarcophagus like a black dragon. A cold, overbearing, violent aura surges up to smother the entire main chamber, and the air thickens as if squeezed by an unseen giant hand. Xiao Wang, the Spear King, and the rest blanch as a wave of suffocation crashes over them. They retreat in a stumbling panic, shouting warnings to those behind them to stay out because it is deadly ahead. I keep my eyes fixed on the coffin as a figure slowly rises. It stands a full 7 feet, its ghastly iron-blue face warped like a vengeful ghost, pale fangs glinting with an eerie light. Where its left arm should be flesh, there is instead a gleaming puppet arm, gears and a metal skeleton showing through the rotting meat. I cannot help pausing at how bizarre it looks, faintly cyberpunk even. Most likely, this cultivator first tried to refine himself into a puppet for longevity, failed, and settled for a zombie instead. And even that refinement failed, stripping away his awareness and leaving nothing but a bloodthirsty corpse. While my thoughts are still turning, a deafening zombie roar splits the chamber. Its legs coil and explode, launching it like a bolt of black lightning, and it hurtles at me on a foul, stinking wind. My expression does not shift as I raise my hand and call up the great yin-yang destruction divine light. A world-ending aura swells through the chamber, as if all things might return to nothing under the blow. A beam of divine light woven from black and white crosses the space in an instant to blast toward the zombie. Sensing a lethal crisis, the zombie hauls every strand of corpse energy into that puppet left arm, and swings it, thick with power, straight into the incoming light. The great yin-yang destruction divine light and the massive corpse chi collide with a deafening roar. The two forces slam together like warring beasts, the blast rattling everyone's eardrums, the violent energy sweeping outward like a tsunami. The chamber floor cracks inch by inch, spiderweb fissures racing across it. The whole space shudders as ceiling stones fall like rain and dust boils up. The zombie is hurled off like a broken kite and smashes into the far wall. When the dust thins, its puppet left arm is simply gone, its entire left side ground to powder, chilling white bone laid bare. My eyes stay cold as frost, and without a flicker of hesitation, I loose the great yin-yang destruction divine light again. The intertwined black and white light of world ruin tears through the empty air and drives at the zombie. It answers with a heaven-shaking roar, corpse chi whipping up around it like a black hurricane before it condenses onto its right arm. Then it swings that arm, heavy with the reek of death, to meet the divine ability head-on. The instant they touch, the air erupts, and its right arm crumbles to powder and drifts away. The violent energy rolls through the rest of its body like a rising tide, shattering it whole into dust that scatters and thins to nothing. With the zombie wiped out, I fall into thought. The great five elements destruction divine light and the great yin-yang destruction divine light are astonishingly powerful, but the true force they burn through is terrifying. An ordinary Dao Seed Realm cultivator likely could not manage even one cast, and forcing it would wring him completely dry. These two divine abilities can only ever serve as trump cards, never as everyday attacks, and the same holds for my others. At my current cultivation, the cost simply is not worth it. Even with hundreds of millions of subsystems hauling in energy points, I cannot throw them around, and worst of all, doing so would drag down the pace of my own cultivation. So Wandang, the Spear King, and the Sword God watch me grind that terrifying zombie to dust in 2 moves, and they swallow hard in unison. As members of the Jin State's top 10, they count themselves seasoned, yet they have never laid eyes on a figure this monstrous. The zombie's aura alone had nearly choked the breath out of them, and I dissolved it with ease, far beyond anything they could picture. Xiao Xianggan, Baek Suyan, and the other system bearers show shock first, then a burning eagerness. They have all but concluded that I must have entered the Dao Seed Realm, and that with enough energy points, they too might one day reach it. Little Yellow struts over to me with his head high and his chest out, tail lifted, as if he personally slew the zombie. He messages me through the system messenger the whole way, marveling that I blasted such a horror to dust in 2 strokes. I only grunt. I walk to the coffin's side, grasp through the air, and the jade slip within drops into my palm, and a probe of my divine sense lays its contents bare. It is an immortal cultivation technique of the metal attribute called the true explanation of 1,000 machine puppets. It can be cultivated all the way to the nascent soul realm, and it also records a wealth of exquisite methods for crafting puppets. Finishing my read, I look at the burning gazes around me and smile. This is an immortal technique, I tell them, and I will upload it to the system mall later so anyone who wants it can go buy it themselves. Seo Songgan, Baek Suyan, Se Wang, and the other system bearers light up at once, but So Wandang, the Spear King, and the rest without a system are baffled. They cannot grasp what this system mall is, finding it flatly unbelievable that a treasure like an immortal technique could be sold. So Wandang cannot help asking me what exactly the system mall is and how one enters it. I look at their confusion, exchange a few system seeds without ceremony, and toss the seeds to them, telling them they will understand once they bind them. They hold the seeds, hesitate, and then choose to bind. The next moment, their eyes fly wide and shock spills out of them in exclamation after exclamation. One cries that the mall holds so many divine ability secret manuals. Another is awed that the enlightenment space is utterly heaven-defying. A third is stunned that the fabled storage space of an immortal magic treasure can be opened here, just by spending energy points. The still unbound stare straight at me, aching to receive a seed of their own, while the system bearers, never ones to miss a chance at energy points, quickly exchange seeds and pass them around. I ignore all of it, and with a thought, upload the true explanation of 1,000 machine puppets to the system mall. I am not the least bit worried that anyone will drop the Dao Seed martial arts system to chase it. The technique is metal attribute, so only someone with a metal spiritual root could ever cultivate it, and the rest could not even find the door. Besides, without a comparison, how would the sheer strength of the Dao Seed martial arts system ever stand out? I announce that I have uploaded the true explanation of 1,000 machine puppets, and that anyone who needs it can go buy it. So Wandang stares at the long trailing string of zeros behind its price and smiles bitterly. admitting it is far too dear and that she does not hold a single energy point. The rest fall into the same rueful chorus. They lament that the mall brims with good things they cannot afford and resolve to sell off every cultivation technique they own for energy points. The mall even carries the legacy techniques of great orders like the Sanong sect, they note, and everyone knows their own methods lag hopelessly behind, so they are all cashing them in to buy strength. Xiao Wang's face is uneasy, and after hesitating again and again he steps forward, cups his fists, and asks whether I have already reached the Dao Seed realm. The words freeze the breathing of everyone around him. I sweep my gaze over their anxious faces and recognize a perfect chance to sell the Dao Seed martial arts system. So I nod without hesitation. I tell them I have indeed reached the Dao Seed realm. In my own experience, the Dao Seed martial arts system is stronger than the immortal cultivation system and carries no aptitude requirements, so anyone can cultivate it. It currently only extends to the Dao Seed realm, I add, but with the Enlightenment space to help, they will all pioneer new realms, and its future is limitless. Every face before me brims with excitement, longing flickering bright in their eyes. I can see them already impatient to reach the Dao Seed realm, some even dreaming of carving out fresh realms of their own. A satisfied smile settles onto my face because the effect I wanted has landed exactly as planned. Many of those who came to the cultivator's tomb were leaders of their own forces, and once they bound the system and returned home, they set off a mad rush for energy points. To buy the mall's techniques, they all went into motion, and the simplest way to earn energy points was to hand out system seeds. So every force sent its people fanning across their own territories and the lands around them, scattering seeds everywhere. Merchants smelled the opportunity too and traded for great quantities of storage space, since goods stashed inside it moved without transport loss and could be delivered fast by martial artists. Some merchants pushed seeds across the whole of the Jin state through their own channels, reaping vast energy points and reaching even into the neighboring countries. In a single month, the number of system hosts climbed to 3 billion. It kept growing by more than 100 million a day, the pace quickening on itself. Fortunately, every new subsystem added another energy source, driving the energy growth faster still. At the same time, the hosts poured energy points back out to buy techniques and to use paid features like the Enlightenment space, forming a healthy cycle. Without it, there would be no way to fund such enormous rewards while still feeding my own cultivation. Back at the world-saving medical hall, I sprawl in my rocking chair scrolling the video feed, feeling almost like I am home on Earth again. I am watching the tomb trip clips recorded by the hosts who were there. My one palm kill of the bronze humanoid puppet comes through crisp and clean. The strike sharp, the puppet's shattering caught in full. The clips spread like wildfire, and now I too am famous, hailed as the #1 expert among system hosts. I have no intention of smothering the video's reach or banning them outright, because moves like that would be far too deliberate. If I want to keep my identity as the system's lord hidden, the best cover is to melt into the ordinary crowd, and that means even future slander will have to go unanswered. I open the comments section, and the whole screen is a flood of praise. They marvel that the Jin State's top 10 could not crack the bronze humanoid puppet while I ended it with one palm. Others dream aloud of cultivating to the Dao Seed realm and living 500 years. I cannot help grinning. This is the first time so many eyes have found me, and I enjoy it more than I expected. Then I close the interface and stand, because after resting this long, it is time to put in the hours deducing cultivation techniques and Great Dao laws. With so many new secret manuals in the mall, I mean to seize the moment and push the Great Dao laws toward 1,000 strands. I turn my focus inward, and my grip on the space-time realm has reached 20%, which lends me a little more confidence for the work ahead. Time slides by like a white horse past a gap, and I lose myself completely in cultivation and deduction, my attention to the outside world thinning by the day. Across that stretch, a run of epic-making inventions surfaces, one after another: cement, improved grain seeds, glass, and vehicles. The vehicles marry technology to cultivation, needing no gasoline and running on pure energy alone. Every creator or team behind these breakthroughs reaps enormous energy point rewards, and a public commendation besides. The incentive lights a fire under everyone, dragging countless people into the wave of invention. These novelties land like boulders in a still lake, throwing up huge waves across a feudal world, a silent yet earth-shaking transformation rolling in with a force nothing can stop. Inside the council hall of the Blazing Sun sect, the #1 expert of the Jin state, Yu Munju looked down on the sect's leader Wang Yang, his tone all arrogance. He demanded to know why Wang Yang had sought him out, warning that he was in seclusion and that the matter had better be important. Wang Yang's lips twitched as he answered respectfully. Lately, within the Blazing Sun sect's sphere of influence, people had been spreading something called the System, and its mall was even selling martial arts secret manuals. This was gutting the sect's recruitment and its interests, he explained, and he had not dared decide the matter alone, so he had come to report it. Yu Munju said impatiently that Wang Yang need not have bothered him with such a trifle. Since it harmed the Blazing Sun sect, he should simply ban the spread and kill anyone who kept at it. Wang Yang looked conflicted and murmured that he had heard the system was genuinely miraculous and its manuals deeply profound. He had been thinking of letting the sect's disciples bind to it, he said, to learn stronger martial arts and strengthen the order. Yu Munju's face curled with disdain as he sneered that the Blazing Sun sect's own arts were profound enough, and asked whether some trash system's wares could really outstrip theirs. He had become the Jin State's #1 expert on the strength of the Blazing Sun divine art. The system's open sale of manuals broke every rule, he declared, so it had to be banned, and any disciple caught secretly binding it would face sect law. With that, he turned and swept out to return to his seclusion. Wang Yang opened his mouth to press further, then swallowed the words. He clenched his fists until the nails bit into his palms and his knuckles went white, and after wrestling with it, he let out a heavy sigh. As the Jin State's #1 expert, Yu Munju was the pillar the whole Blazing Sun sect rested on, and its lofty standing was built entirely on his backing. But the man ran hot and domineering, deaf to advice, his word absolute law within the sect. Even as sect leader, Wang Yang had to seek his instructions on anything of weight. With so strict an order handed down, he could only comply or risk his own seat. And besides, he had never seen the system with his own eyes, so perhaps its wonders were merely overblown. Thinking that, he gave up persuading anyone and walked out to relay the command. As the Jin State's foremost order, home to its foremost expert, the Blazing Sun sect held a status that towered over the martial world. The instant it banned the system within its reach, many schools and noble families fell in line, all of them already resentful of the system, or bleeding interests because of it. A wave of prohibition swept out across the martial world, and it set both the video feed and the forum ablaze, the topic rocketing up the rankings. The comments section split into open ridicule and quiet suspicion. Some mocked the Blazing Sun sect for banning a miracle it could never truly suppress. Others muttered that these old powers had likely bound the system in secret long ago while denying it to everyone below them. It was exactly what Go Cheongcheon of Gangryong Prefecture had once tried, spreading rumors to frighten the common folk. All the while I knew none of it, buried in the deduction of the Great Tao laws. With the subsystem computing power matrix carrying the weight, I fused the many martial arts secret manuals I had collected with the insights drawn from the Enlightenment space. On that foundation, I pushed the deduction of the laws forward. Inside the world-saving medical hall, I close my eyes and send my divine sense to watch the world seed drifting within my dantian. Across its surface, 1,213 Great Tao law patterns crisscross like an inverted galaxy. Each one shimmers with the light of the Great Tao, as though it holds the secrets of heaven and earth. Mysterious Tao rhyme rippling outward in layer after layer. At the same time, the chaos world sealed within the world seed is expanding and transforming at a startling speed, growing vaster by the moment. I had only meant to end my seclusion once I comprehended 1,000 laws. Instead, the instant I began, inspiration came pouring in like a rising tide, and lost inside it, I forgot the passage of time and comprehended more than 200 laws beyond my goal. More than that, the 500 and more laws I had grasped earlier were further refined along the way. I opened my eyes with the phantom of the chaos world still swirling in them, and let out a long breath. This seclusion has paid out far past what I hoped. Pushing the joy down, I summoned the system interface to check the latest news. And at a glance, I see it. The Blazing Sun sect and a string of other schools and noble families are forbidding the system within their lands, with reports of people executed for spreading it in private. My face darkens on the spot. I had long expected the vested interests to refuse the system free rein. Still, I had assumed the first to leap out and stop it would be the Jin State Imperial Court, not the Blazing Sun sect, a mere martial world order badly overrating itself. It is the perfect chance to make an example. What galls me more is that some of these factions forbid others from touching the system while quietly binding it themselves. A double standard so nakedly greedy screams their hunger to monopolize it. Killing intent surges through me, and for a moment I want to use the system to wipe them out where they stand. So every host learns its majesty cannot be challenged. But I cool down fast, because these people have not actually broken any rule I set. Rashly erasing a system host outright might panic the rest and sour the system's spread. What I need instead is to upgrade the system and add an intelligent identification function so that any faction trying to forbid the system can no longer bind it at all. With a thought, I unbind the system from every member of the offending factions. Then I open the system backend, my eyes narrowing at the numbers laid out before me. More than 10 billion people have now bound the system. 2 billion of them sit inside the Jin state, meaning over half its population are hosts, while the remaining 8 billion are scattered through the surrounding countries. My gaze drops to the energy points, and the figure of 2 trillion swims into view. The balance left after I burned a fortune deducing the Great Tao laws. Looking at that number, I feel easy, certain I will never fret over energy points again. At once I post a fresh mission in the mission hall. It states that the Blazing Sun sect and factions like it are forbidding the system's spread and even killing system hosts. This is a grave violation of every host's freedom and a challenge to the system's own majesty. The mission calls for the extermination of the Blazing Sun sect and all such factions, and opens enrollment to anyone at the Ennet realm or above. On completion, the participants will divide 300 billion energy points by contribution. The moment it goes live, the forum and the video feed detonate and shoot to the top of the rankings. The comment sections become a red-eyed frenzy of greed and glee. Most celebrate that the arrogant factions have already been forcibly unbound and are about to be swarmed under before they even understand what is coming. While I sit watching the hosts react, Little Yellow's voice reaches me, crowing that I have finally come out of seclusion. I exit the system to find him barreling toward me in his floral pants, his body as solid as a young calf. He tells me excitedly that the moment he saw a new mission refresh in the mission hall, he knew I must be out. Then he launches into how detestable those Blazing Sun sect people are for blocking the system, insisting we wipe them all out. He adds, half guilty, that he had wanted to tell me, but had not dared disturb my seclusion, which is why the clowns had been allowed to strut around so long. I laugh and tell him not to fume. Just as he says, they are only clowns, and now that they have poked their heads out, it is the ideal moment to make an example of them. He snorts, still furious, saying he simply cannot stomach their arrogance in daring to block Master's system. The truly maddening part, he adds, is how they use the system while wrecking it, biting the very hand that feeds them. I know he is standing up for me, so I reach out and gently pat his dog head to soothe him. I promise that I plan to upgrade the system with an intelligent identification function, so they can never exploit the loophole again. He squints, savoring the petting, nodding along that I should do exactly that and lock out anyone who bites the hand that feeds. Then I tell him that since I have surfaced today, I will take him out for a proper feast. Out on the concrete road, my face fills with surprise, because I had not expected a mere stretch of seclusion to leave Chungsan town paved in concrete. The dilapidated thatched cottages that once lined the streets are gone, replaced by rows of fresh brick and tile houses. What startles me more is a vehicle shaped much like the cars of my past life, gliding by with passengers aboard. In the shops, people are paying by scanning codes through the system messenger. Pedestrians flit along at speed on their lightness techniques. And at the corner noodle stall, the owner kneads his dough with sheer martial force. I gaze at the strange, dreamlike scene, where the technology of Earth and the old charm of the cultivation world blend into something at once familiar and foreign. The inventions I approved dropped like boulders into a deep pool and threw up 1,000 waves. Watching the beaming faces of the common folk on the street, my mouth curves up on its own. This transformation is clearly moving in a good direction. Seeing my surprise, Little Yellow messages me through the system messenger. While I was in seclusion, he says, once those inventions took hold, the whole world began evolving at a ridiculous pace. The mountain bandits that used to be everywhere are completely gone now, since nearly everyone knows martial arts. If any bandit still dared to rob a commoner, he adds, it would be a real question who ends up robbing whom. I answer with a laugh that this is good, that the world finally has some new life in it, and that we should eat first, and stroll around slowly afterward. After the meal, I wander Chongsan town again, taking in the changes, and step into the Im family dealership to find rows of ancient-style vehicles. They run on neither fuel nor electricity, driven entirely by formations and mechanisms. The styles vary widely, some with 3 rows of seats like the cars of my past life, others closer to motorhomes. The manager recognizes me at a glance and hurries over with a respectful greeting, calling me Dr. Yu. These are all built by the Im family dealership, he boasts, and they run on true force or energy points, with quality beyond question. He invites me to take one for a test drive, Curiosity pulls me aboard the motorhome-styled vehicle with little yellow at my heels, and following the instructions, I feed in a thread of true force to start it. Operating the thing is absurdly simple, steered by thought alone with no fiddling over mechanical parts. It rolls smooth and effortless without the faintest jolt. The catch is that for anyone short on energy points or weak in cultivation, driving it drinks far too much energy. I climb out and ask the price. Straight. In silver it comes to 10,000, the manager answers with a smile, but paid in energy points it runs only 5,000. I tell him I will take one and pay in energy points. Come to think of it, I am short on nearly everything these days, but energy points are the one thing I never lack. I drive my new car through the streets of Cheongsan town, and the envious looks from passers-by stir a warm little swell of satisfaction. It is a taste of the thrill others chased driving luxury cars in my old life. I shake the thought off and steer for the town's edge. Beyond the gate the road changes, only a short run of it cemented, and the rest pitted mud. Yet somehow the car never bumps. A probe of my divine sense reveals why. The vehicle is not merely optimized in its mechanics, but carries a lightness formation built in specifically to smother the jolts. No wonder the ride is this comfortable. Truly the wisdom of the common people is beyond measure, and guided the right way, they unleash a creativity that stuns me. The car races on, and to either side golden rice stretches as far as the eye can reach. Farmers reap it with martial arts, their figures blurring like lightning clearing an acre in a blink. They shake their hands to thresh the grain rustling into sacks, and swing hoes that lift great clods of soil bursting to powder on impact. Others toss seedlings into the paddies with a technique like a celestial maiden scattering flowers, planting whole fields in an instant. It is more efficient than the mechanical farming of my previous life, the workers robust and nimble, reaping and threshing and tilling and planting in one dizzying motion. Little Yellow leans in to share the news. Thanks to the Shenong Sex research, he tells me, the rice now yields 2,000 pounds per acre, so there is food to spare, and no one need go hungry. They are still working toward a new strain, he adds, one that could reach 3,000 pounds per acre. As a dog who scrolls the video feed and the forum every single day, he is remarkably well informed about these wonders. I take in the bountiful fields and smile, easy and relieved, remembering that all of it began with me. A quiet sense of achievement fills my chest. I start the car and take Little Yellow on a slow loop around the outskirts, before finally glancing at the sky and telling him we are heading back. As the days wore on, the whole Jin state fell into a fever. Once the extermination missions went up, tens of millions of system hosts at the innate realm or above took them on. The class divide had always been savage, and the common people had long carried a belly full of resentment. So when the schools and noble families forbade the system and murdered hosts for spreading it, the fury boiled over. The instant the missions dropped, whether for energy points or to settle old grievances, people surged into a frenzied encirclement of these forces. Some of the targeted factions had bound the system earlier to bolster their strength, but against the experts thrown up by a base of 10 billion hosts, they were a mantis trying to halt a chariot, a single drop against a flood. They could not withstand the tide of extermination at all. News of a school or family being wiped out surfaced on the video feed in the forum every day. Seo Sonyeon stood before the brilliantly lit Zhou Manor, and with a wave of his hand, tens of thousands of system hosts poured through its gates like a rising sea. The head of the Zhou family, Zhou Hang, the 7th-ranked expert of the Jin state, roared at their audacity in daring to provoke his house. Seo Songgang answered him coldly. The Zhou family had done every evil imaginable and had dared to choke off the system's spread, he said, and today was the day they died. Zhou Hang spat back that he was no man to be cowed, that he had ruled the Jin state for decades, and that having come this far, Seo Songgan should not dream of leaving alive. Seo Songgan only sneered, telling Zhou Hang to drop the act. This was the day of the Zhou family's extinction, he said, and the disciples Zhou Hang had secretly arranged to slip away were already dead, so he would now be sent to join them. With a shout to kill, Seo Songgan gathered the power of thunder in his palm and drove it at Zhou Hang. Zhou Hang screamed that they truly dared to exterminate his house, and that the cursed fairness system should never have existed. His Zhou family was meant to ride on the masses' heads for generations, he raged, and lowly peasants had no right to stand as their equals. Even so, he swung his own palm up to meet the strike. When the two palms met, Zhou Hang was flung straight back, blood bursting from his mouth as he crumpled to the ground with his limbs gone numb. He struggled to prop himself up, staring at Seo Songgan in terror, unable to fathom how a mere junior could overpower the 7th-ranked expert of the whole state. Zhou Hang turned his head and saw his family's experts being butchered by the system hosts. Utterly defenseless, screams ringing through the manor. He begged them to stop, crying surrender, but the hosts ignored his pleas entirely. To them, these people were walking energy points, and every extra kill meant an extra share. Seo Sanjan told him his days of lording over others were finished and that he should prepare to die, feeling no shred of pity for a clan that had trampled the common folk. His palm crashed down, thunder flashing like a bolt out of heaven, and it struck Zhou Hang square and blew him to pieces. After that, Seo Sangan flashed forward to join the slaughter. This was the third force he had wiped out, and the achievement earned him 30 million energy points, enough to buy a Dao Seed Realm cultivation technique and climb into the Dao Seed Realm himself. Before long, the Zhou residents fell dead silent, and the once mighty Zhou family, standing for centuries, was annihilated to the last. As the days passed, every force in the Jin state that had obstructed the system, save the Blazing Sun sect alone, was ground out of existence. Across that vast suppression, the dead reached a full million, while the participating hosts made fortunes. Now, every eye turned to the Blazing Sun sect. The sect had heard of the extermination mission and simply refused to take it seriously. After all, they had Yu Munju, the #1 expert of the Jin state, holding the line, and their strength dwarfed the other factions. Even as force after force fell to the hosts, the Blazing Sun sect barely blinked, certain those crushed powers were beneath comparison, and that no one would truly dare come for them. They had no idea that nearly 100,000 system hosts were already coiled silently around their walls. Seo Wang bellowed for Yu Munju to come out and face him, his voice rolling out in waves that shook the leaves from the trees. The memory of that crushing defeat years ago set his teeth grinding. He had gone in believing it a friendly spar, only for Yu Munju to throw ethics aside and strike to kill. And had he not fled fast, he would have died on the spot. Now that the Blazing Sun sect had enraged the system and drawn an extermination order, it was the perfect moment for his revenge. He could settle old and new scores at once, and clear the mission for energy points besides, buying a Dao Seed Realm cultivation technique. A breakthrough into the Dao Seed Realm would win him another 500 years of life. His roar startled the whole sect, disciples snatching up weapons and shouting in a rising din. Sect leader Wang Yang took the 10 great elders and the sect's elite and rushed for the main gate. When they saw the enemy massed thick as an ant colony, they could not help sucking in their breath. At the very front stood Seo Wang, Wan Sungye, Meng Jisao, So Wandang, and others of the Jin State's top 10. Wang Yang's face drained white with dread at foes this fearsome. Then Yu Munju appeared, his voice all contempt, drawling that he wondered who it was, and found only his defeated dog. Had Seo Wang not run fast years ago, he added, he would have perished by his hand. He spared Seo Wang a disdainful glance, then turned to Wan Sonye and the others, his expression hardening as he asked whether they too meant to make enemies of the Blazing Sun sect. A terrifying aura of the heaven-human realm erupted off him. Seo Wang shook with rage, calling Yu Munju a shameless villain who had agreed to spar and then struck with lethal force. Even risen to the heaven-human realm, he warned, Yu Munju would not leave here alive. Meng Jiseo shook his head and told Yu Munju that he had obstructed the system's spread, and that the system had answered with an extermination order. Even in the heaven-human realm, he could not escape death, so he had best take his own life early and spare himself the humiliation. Wan Sungye followed with a cold laugh, declaring the Blazing Sun sect must fall today. Yu Munju's habit of overbearing everyone, and his gall in blocking the system and killing hosts, had earned him nothing but death. Purple with fury, Yu Munju roared that they did not know what was good for them. He had merely wished to avoid trouble, he spat, and they should not imagine he feared them. The system was evil path nonsense, courting its own destruction by selling martial arts secret manuals at will. So Wandang sighed, her tone weary. He was so ignorant and so arrogant, she said, that it would be a wonder if the Blazing Sun sect were not destroyed under him. He understood nothing of the system yet dared spew nonsense, and before the system they were all insignificantly small. She warned him not to assume the handful of them were the strongest hosts. Many stood far above them, and some could wipe them all out in a single move. Yu Munju's expression cracked, because he had known only that the system sold manuals and never dreamed such monsters walked among the hosts. He sat in the heaven-human realm, and lacked even the confidence to fell a great Grand Master like So Wantang in one blow, let alone several at once. Unable to believe it, he decided she must be bluffing. Seo Wang snapped that there was no point wasting breath and to simply do it. He channeled the 9 Yang heaven-burning art until his whole body became a sun wrapped in flame. and he blasted at Yu Munju with an aura fit to level the earth. Yu Munju's face changed as he threw every ounce of his power into the blazing sun palm to meet it. The two palms collided like two suns crashing together, blinding light exploding outward until everyone shut their eyes on instinct. Violent shockwaves ripped the ground into ugly cracks and hurled up sand and stone. Yu Munju loosed a miserable scream, spat blood, and flew backward into the disciples behind him, the scene dissolving into wails. He clawed his way upright, eyes wide with shock, unable to grasp what martial art could carry such power. Seo Wang told him plainly that this was the very cultivation technique sold by the system he had looked down on, and flashed in to attack again. Regret swallowed Yu Munju whole. He had never imagined a technique from the system could be this strong, and had he known, he would never have obstructed its spread. Had he only bound the system himself, he would not be cornered like this now. But regret changed nothing, and he could only grit his teeth and brace for Seo Wang's next strike. Seeing the fierce assault, Manga Seo swept his spear up and charged in, bent on taking Yu Munju's head. The others followed, unleashing killing move after killing move, until blades and swords flashed everywhere, and true force raged like a wild dragon. The sounds of slaughter and screaming filled the whole ground. With a final shrill cry, Yu Munju was torn apart under Seo Wang's nine-yang heaven-burning art, his flesh and blood falling like red rain. Their backbone gone, the blazing sun sect disciples collapsed, and under the crashing tide of hosts they had no strength left to resist. In the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, the once renowned blazing sun sect was slaughtered to nothing. I go carefully through the video evidence of the blazing sun sect's destruction, submitted by Seo Wang, Wan Songye, and the others. After confirming its authenticity through the system backend again and again, I release 100 million energy points to Seo Wang. Tens of millions each go to the main players like Wan Songye and Meng Jiseo. Every host who joined the fight and cut down a blazing sun sect disciple receives a reward matched to his contribution. With the sect wiped out, the mission closes on a perfect note. Any host who killed walked away rich, while those who spilled no blood can only look on and swallow their envy. I am certain this extermination will stand as a heavy deterrent, and that the system will spread far more smoothly from here. Still, it is time to update and upgrade the system with a few new features. I lie back in my rocking chair with my eyes gently closed, feeling my way through Fairness System version 5. It is built out of the 2213 Great Tao laws I have lately comprehended. Its foundations have all been strengthened: energy storage and conversion, computing power, anti-hacking, and the veiling of heavenly secrets, and every other feature refined to match. This update brings 3 new functions. The first of them is system intelligence. It can both head off any biting-the-hand situations and sift out undesirable information. It can also help handle the auditing in the mission hall, lightening my own load. Its permissions stay deliberately low, with many needing my authorization before it can act. The core of the fairness system remains entirely in my hands, where the intelligence has no right to reach, precisely so it can never slip its leash. The second function is the video feed live stream, where broadcasting carries a chance at generous rewards. The third is the trial tower, which is exactly what its name suggests, a place built for trials. The trial tower runs 3,000 levels, each cleared by defeating its gatekeeper. The difficulty climbs floor by floor, and the battlefield shifts at every one. Based on a challenger's realm, the tower maintains combat power rankings for each realm, each recording only the top 3,000. The figures of the finest challengers are copied by the tower into gatekeepers guarding the levels. For now there are only 100 gatekeepers, every one of them molded by my own hand. When a challenger enters, the tower takes a sliver of his mental energy or divine sense to condense a physical body. Then it temporarily seals off his awareness that any of it is a trial, forcing him to treat every fight as a true life and death duel. This tempers his combat experience and instincts under real pressure. Even in defeat, he loses only that sliver, which recovers fully after a few days' rest. And it is worth noting what happens to the Great Tao laws a challenger wields inside, along with the Tao insights left behind at death. The tower gathers them all up to speed my own comprehension of the Great Tao. Each attempt costs a challenger 100 energy points. Anyone who clears all 3,000 levels collects a staggering 1 billion energy points. At this moment, in the boundless starry expanse of the Trial Tower's 3,000th level, 2 figures are locked in a breathtaking battle. One is my true self, the other the mirror image of me the tower has replicated. Our cultivation technique, martial skills, and divine abilities, all drawn from the same source. Neither of us holds anything back. In the ferocity of the clash, Terrifying energy surges like a tidal wave, meteorites disintegrating inch by inch, and the void shattering wherever it rolls. A man's greatest enemy is himself, and only by facing himself can he truly see his own flaws. Fighting this mirror image, I feel with painful clarity just how troublesome a foe I make. The battle drags across a full 100,000 rounds, both of us grinding from peak power down into exhaustion. In the end, I refine and sublimate my divine ability on the spot, kill the mirror image, and drag out a hard-won victory. I withdraw from the system and slowly exhale a breath of turbid air, the leftover battle intent fading from my eyes. I nod, satisfied because the trial tower's training far outstrips what I expected. Even at my strength, I feel remade after that trial, my combat experience richer, my awareness sharper. Even my divine abilities and martial skills show plenty that still wants improving. I look at my own name sitting first on the Tao Seed Realm combat power ranking, weigh it a moment, and choose in the end not to erase it. The system has only just spread through the mortal world, and troubles are bound to crop up, but my current strength is more than enough to handle them. More than that, I need to build confidence in the cultivators walking the Tao Seed martial arts system, that it is no lesser than the immortal cultivation system. I can quietly stay off the other rankings later, but holding the top seed on the Tao Seed Realm ranking for now does far more good than harm. Once I confirm the rest of version 5 is running clean, I send my mind out and push the version 5 update notice to every system host. Then I stand, my gaze turning far away. I have been in Shangzan Town 7 years now. Back when my strength was thin, I poured my whole heart into cultivation and never once properly took in the scenery of this world. Even with the system to help me comprehend laws from secret manuals, it still cannot match walking the land in person. I want to see the world beyond, to cross 10,000 mountains and rivers and taste the countless faces of the mortal world. Only by trekking through it and feeling the full range of life can I comprehend the great Tao more deeply and temper my own state of mind. The thought sets my figure flickers, and I vanish from where I stood. The next instant I reappear in midair, flying toward Yu Family Village. Having decided to wander, I cannot say when I will return, and before I leave I must pay my respects to my parents and my elder brother. While I am at it, I will look in on Yuhei's family. If they have run into any hardship, I can still slip them a quiet hand before I leave Chongzan Town for good. When I reach Yu Family Village, the sight leaves me faintly dazed. The low thatched cottages have long since vanished. Tidy brick and tile houses have risen in their place, and there is even a short run of cement road laid through the village. A sweep of my divine sense brings a pleasant surprise that Yuhei's whole family has broken through to the innate realm. Yu Jun and Yu Wei especially, only 13 years old, already stand at the innate late stage, with foundations laid rock solid. If things keep on this way, reaching the Tao Seed realm or climbing even higher will be no trouble at all. Even Yu Hei and the rest, under my quiet care, have a real shot at the Tao Seed realm and beyond. Once I am sure they are all well, I finish paying my respects to my parents and my elder brother and return to the world-saving medical hall. I tell Little Yellow that we leave Chongzhen Town tomorrow to travel the world, and that he should get ready. He is so thrilled he springs straight up, eyes blazing, crying that we are finally leaving this place. He has been scrolling the video feed every day, he says, drooling over stunning scenery and itching to get out and explore. I give a soft grunt in answer, then close my eyes and turn my divine sense to the system state after the update and the reactions of the hosts. At the top of the hot lists on both the video feed and the forum sits the Fairness System version 5 update. The comments sections churn with the same love and hate as ever. Some grumble that everything eats energy points, while admitting the system dragged them from starving on the streets to eating their fill, cultivating, even dreaming of immortal ascension. Others rave that the trial tower feels no different from a real fight, and that my name sits unshakably first on its Tao Seed Realm combat power ranking. At that very moment, inside the Golden Throne Hall of the Jin State's Imperial Palace, the air runs hot. The civil and military officials are gathered together, deep in a fevered argument circling the one thing on everyone's mind: the system. The Jin State's rulers finally worked up the nerve to move against me. The funny part is that I watched them do it. Their court clerks had bound the system months earlier, so every word spoken in the Golden Throne Hall that morning leaked straight to the forum. That is how I know exactly how the meeting went. A whole imperial court, and not one of them realized their own scribes were streaming the debate to the very thing they wanted banned. Emperor Sama Han sat on the dragon throne and watched his officials tear into one another over me. He hesitated, unsure what to do. They fell over each other, demanding the same handful of things: ban the system as a demonic object, send the commoners back to being beasts of burden, march the army out, and force every host to unbind before the country revolted. Each of them had a dead son, a wiped-out family, or a seized stretch of farmland to wave in the emperor's face. Sama Han's head buzzed under the crying and shouting. He pressed down his temper and asked his prime minister, Oh Hubak, what the man made of it. The moment his voice fell, the noisy hall went silent. Every gaze turned to Oh Hubak at once. Oh, Hubak stepped forward with a grave face. He reminded them that the Blazing Sun sect and a few others had already tried banning the system. The result was an extermination mission issued straight through the system. In a short span, the whole faction was killed to the last man by hosts, the dead numbering over 1 million. Then he asked a plain question, did any of their martial Dao match the Jin State's top expert, Yu Munju? Did any of their influence match the Blazing Sun sect? Not one of them could answer. They looked down on Zhang figures out of habit, yet they knew in their bones they were nowhere near that weight. Seeing them go quiet, Oh Hyobak pressed on. He said the system could not be prohibited at all. It spread fast and it spread in secret. Its wonders ran so far past imagination that only an immortal could have made it. Worse, none of them could say who had already bound it. Was the court going to slaughter the entire Jin state just to be sure? He dared say some men in that very hall had already tried to bind it. He dared say a good number of their own descendants were hosts by now. That shut them up hard. Because it was true, they had all felt the miracle of the thing. Many had secretly reached for it, and every one of those attempts had failed. The system had gutted their interests. That, not any love of order, was the real reason they wanted it gone. Oh Hyobak turned back to the emperor and laid it out cleanly. He said the government offices across the Jin state were running stable. Apart from a few corrupt officials killed for angering hosts, the rest were untouched. The system had already saturated the whole country. Even the neighboring states were seeing it appear. A ban would stop nothing. Provoke it into issuing an extermination mission, though, and none of them would live past nightfall, and the Jin state would perish with them. The censor-in-chief, Zhang Bo, refused to swallow that. He scoffed that the Jin state fielded an army of 1 million, surely enough to crush a rabble of hosts. Oh Hyobak gave him one cold glance. Could he name how many of that million-strong army were themselves hosts? Could he name which man in the room had already bound? 1. Zhang Bo's eyes went wide. His mouth worked, and no sound came out. He tucked his head down and did not dare make another noise. I have to admit, the old prime minister could read a room. Oh Hyobak even found a bright side to sell. He said the system was not all loss. So many useful things had come out of it. The grain yield per acre had climbed to 2,000 pounds, so the Jin state would never again fear famine. There was cement, there was soap, there was glass, there were vehicles, and each of them had given ordinary life a fresh face. Sama Han leaned against the dragon throne and stroked the armrests, his expression uncertain. After a long pause, he admitted the prime minister made sense, but his rule now existed in name only, and he asked whether there was any way to salvage it. Oh Hyobak's face went grim, and he offered his plan. Invite the nation-guarding immortal master to step forward and challenge the strongest host of them all, a man named Yu Il. Defeat him in the open, and it would cow every other host and perhaps preserve the throne. Zhang Bo, recovering his nerve, blurted that a win might even let them seize the system itself. Sama Han waited, agreed the reasoning held, and rose to go invite the immortal master in person. The immortal abode hall sat quiet and plain, nothing like the gold and jade glare of the rest of the palace. Sama Han bowed low to a man in a moon-white robe wrapped in faint spiritual light, Wanjung Sage. He greeted him with all the respect a mortal emperor owed an immortal master. Zhang Sage looked genuinely puzzled and asked why the emperor had come. Sama Han reported that a wondrous object called the Fairness System had appeared in the Jin state. Inside it sat a mall selling every kind of cultivation technique and secret manual. Sama Han explained there were functions too, a messenger and a forum and a video feed, all able to carry speech across any distance. There were stranger ones still, an enlightenment space, a storage space, a trial tower, a map, a mission hall. The thing had spread through the entire Jin state. Almost every soul in the country had bound it, and the throne now existed in name only. Suspicion and shock crossed Zhang Sage's face at once. In the long history of the cultivation world, nothing like this had ever appeared. From the names alone he could guess roughly what they did, and the guessing only deepened his disbelief. He asked how one bound the system, saying he would examine it himself. Sama Han lifted a shimmering system seed to him with both hands. The emperor said agreeing in his heart was all it took. Zhang Sage poured his divine sense into the seed and felt an indescribable mystery pour back. He could sense it, but he could never see through it. After a brief thought, he took it and agreed to the binding. The instant the interface opened, the dignity of a nation-guarding immortal master fell right off his face. He could not stop himself exclaiming at the enlightenment space. He marveled at a storage space that opened for mere energy points, when refined storage treasures had grown so rare and so costly. He gaped at a mall stocked not only with martial Dao techniques, but immortal ones too. He said the messenger and the forum and the video feed could talk across any distance, when even the finest communication treasures of the cultivation world could not. And the trial tower let a man condense a body out of divine sense and fight life and death duels to sharpen his instinct. He called it a heaven-sent opportunity, the terror of 3 nations, and I had turned him into a wide-eyed new subscriber inside 10 seconds. Welcome to the company. Once the excitement passed, Zhang Sajie remembered himself and scraped his dignity back together. Stern again, he asked what exactly Samahan wanted of him. Samahan lowered his gaze and pretended he had seen no lapse at all. The man's reaction had told him plenty, that this system was a heaven-defying treasure even in an immortal master's eyes. So he kept his request modest. The system already existed, and no one could unmake that fact. He begged the immortal master only to duel Yu Il, the strongest among the hosts, since a defeat there would deter the rest and hold the throne together. Zhang Sajie frowned and thought it over. His sect had sent him to keep the Jin state stable, and to pick out disciples with the aptitude for immortal cultivation. This request sat squarely inside those duties. With a flicker of thought, he unfolded the interface in his divine sense and searched me out. He found the #1 system host, the first man to break into the Dao Seed realm. He found the fixed holder of the top spot on the Trial Tower's Dao Seed combat ranking. From a video of me killing a bronze humanoid puppet, he judged my strength at roughly the Golden Core realm. It did not scare him. He stood at the middle stage of the Golden Core realm, and he cultivated an orthodox immortal technique no martial art could match. Even the ceiling of my whole system, the Dao Seed realm, could not be spoken of alongside immortal cultivation. On top of that, he now had the system to make himself stronger. So he nodded and accepted. The duel would fall 3 months out, on the Fallen Leaf Plain, 100 kilometers beyond the capital. Samahan saluted and left to carry the challenge to me. Alone, Zhang Sajie set to studying his new toy, and the first thing he learned was the price of everything. He uploaded and sold every immortal technique he owned, sparing only the core legacy technique of the Heavenly Revelation sect. The mall paid him 700,000 energy points. Without a flicker, he burned 100,000 to open a storage space of 1 cubic meter. He swept a teacup off the table into it, then pulled it back out an instant later. It really was a storage space, though a cramped one. Widening it by another cubic meter cost a full 1 million, which he did not have, so he made himself save. The enlightenment space was next. 100,000 more bought him a stretch inside. The moment he entered, his mind began to race and every old doubt about his realm untangled in a breath. He barely had time to taste it before the clock ran out. He dumped his remaining 500,000 energy points into the space without a second thought. When he stepped out 50 seconds later, he laughed up at the sky. He was certain now he could reach the late Golden Core stage within 3 months and touch the Nascent Soul Realm within 20 years. Then his eyes fell to his personal center, where the energy balance read 0, and his laughter died. He said aloud that he was poor, really too poor. For the first time in a long life, the nation-guarding immortal master had tasted running short on money, and he hated it. Being locked out of a function, as heaven-defying as the enlightenment space was its own kind of torture, he ran through his options the way every wage earner eventually does. Converting spirit stones was out, since those were for cultivation. Inventing things was out, since he had no talent for it. Going out to promote the system like a salesman was frankly beneath him, selling more secret manuals he had just done. Then he remembered the royal family's fat store of old classics, and resolved to lean on Samahan to grind out more energy points, and went looking for the emperor. I drove out of Chungsan town and gave myself over to the road. The car ate the miles, and I led it, savoring the raw thrill of speed. Little Yellow rode the passenger seat, eyeing the wheel, itching to get his paws on it. Finally, he wheedled that his poor tired master should rest in the back and let him take over. I saw straight through him. I told him that was fine, that the rest of the trip was his, since I had already scratched my own itch for speed. Now I could use the downtime to deduce the great Tao laws. He crowed that the road was on him. I stopped the car and gave up the driver's seat. I reminded him it was his own idea, not something I had forced. Then I pointed a finger and dropped an illusion over him. Anyone glancing in would now see a man at the wheel, not a dog. A dog driving down the highway would have started a riot, and I did not need the attention. I shut my eyes and set my consciousness into the system to browse the forum. The very top of the trending list read plainly that the Jin State's nation-guarding immortal master had challenged Yu. I opened it. There in the video stood the Emperor of the Jin State himself, in his dragon robe, grave-faced, issuing the challenge on behalf of the immortal master Zheng Sai. My interest sharpened. I ran a quiet check through the back end and confirmed the man really was the Emperor. So the system's spread had thrown the Jin States powerful into open panic, enough to drag out their immortal master. The Jin State fell inside the Heavenly Revelation sect sphere, which made this immortal master one of its disciples, a golden core cultivator, equal in weight to my own Dao Seed realm. I had not fully stretched my strength since my breakthrough. Here was a clean chance to measure myself against a golden core cultivator head-on. Beat him, and I would crush the rebellious spirit of the Jin State's power brokers. Beat him, and I would prove to every practitioner of the Dao Seed martial arts system that our path stood taller than immortal cultivation. I opened the comments, and they scrolled by exactly as I expected. An immortal master had actually challenged me. The Emperor was clearly flailing to save his throne. Cultivators fly through the sky and burrow through the earth, while martial artists are only brutes with short lifespans. Holding out a few moves would already count as a miracle. The old picture of the lofty cultivator was rooted deep in every heart, and pictures like that do not change in a day. I ignored the whole skeptical tide and recorded one short clip of my own. 3 months from now, Fallen Leaf Plain, I would be there. No extra words, just the promise. And it carried more battle intent than a speech. On foot for the rest of the journey, I gave up the carriage and measured the land with my own steps. I walked in thought, weighing the great Tao of heaven and earth against the mountains and rivers I passed. I sank into the law of destiny, trying to deduce it by threading the old fortune-telling classics through the law of karma. Destiny is one of the supreme laws of the world. Comprehend it and weave it into the world seed before that seed births its heaven and earth, and I could nurture a more perfect world on a firmer foundation. I muttered the same lines over and over as I walked, that destiny was impermanent and unpredictable, and that with karma as the guide, destiny led the way. My feet carried me, without my noticing, toward a desolate stretch of ground. Little Yellow knew better than to disturb me at the edge of a breakthrough. He only padded along in silence, watching every direction, afraid some accident would break my focus. Then the clang of clashing weapons rang out ahead. That sudden noise struck me like the hand of destiny and pulled me clean out of my deduction. In the same instant, unfathomable light of the law burst from my eyes and my aura surged. I spoke the incantation to trace the cause and find the effect, and the law of destiny stood complete. Dazzling great Tao light erupted from my body. The power of the law of destiny coiled around me like something you could touch. For a moment, I felt fused with heaven and earth, wrapped in an aura so profound it drew awe and longing at once. I drew the light back into myself and turned toward the fighting. I had only meant to use karma as a guide and trace cause to effect, seeking whatever people my destiny was tangled with. I had half expected nothing. Instead, I had cracked the law of destiny open and glimpsed its true face. I told Little Yellow there was trouble ahead, and my figure flashed forward. He answered and kept close behind me, tearing the air as he came. I reached the scene in a blink, and blood-colored light filled the sky. A single crimson figure was hounding 2 swordsmen without mercy. I knew them, the black and white twin swords, Ye Hienzo and So Yoguang. Their sword lights wove together like silver ribbons, just barely walling out the assault. Without years of practiced coordination, they would already be dead. I recognized the attacker at a glance, a demonic cultivator running the blood demon art. I saw the twins knocked flying back. I flashed in front of them and struck with the blazing sunstar-shattering palm. The scorching palm force fell like a sun and incinerated the blood energy choking the sky. For a heartbeat, it was as if 2 suns had risen between heaven and earth, their glare washing every direction white. A shriek tore loose as the demonic cultivator's body burst apart. Scarlet mist bloomed in the air, most of him annihilated in an instant. Then a sinister roar answered. It howled that the blood demon did not die, that 10,000 bloods returned to the origin for a rebirth and a bloodbath. Thick, tangible blood energy gushed from the remains and reknit his broken body whole. My pupils shrank. I flashed forward and struck the blazing sunstar-shattering palm again, and world-ending heat erupted a second time. The temperature within 10 miles soared, and the sky-burning flames swallowed the blood shadow like an enraged tide. He howled that he would not accept it. He had only just broken through his realm. He could not fall here. He threw the blood demon art into resisting, and the supreme yang power burned him down to ash all the same. As the last thread of blood energy scattered, silence returned. Only a single classic fell to the ground, glowing a dark wet red. I confirmed over and over that the man had truly suffered, soul flying away and spirit scattering. Then I lifted my hand and drew the classic to me. 3 characters sat on the cover, blood demon art, and my pupils shrank hard. I had buried the blood demon art deep underground with my own hands. So how was it here? Had someone dug it up? I opened it and checked. The technique inside matched, yet I could tell almost at once this was not the copy I had buried. There were 2 of them then. It smelled deliberate, as if someone were seeding the world with the blood demon art on purpose. For the life of me, I could not see what they gained. I tucked the manual into my storage space and turned to the twins. They had bound the system since I last saw them and taken up the Tao Seed martial arts system, reaching the middle stage of the Divine Sea Realm. I told them it had been a long time. They cried out that it was me, both at once. They had never dreamed the man who saved them would be me. The memory of being captured alive by me in their first battle was clearly one neither would ever shake. I looked at their stunned faces and nodded with a smile. Whether they knew it or not, these 2 were benefactors of mine. Without the soul transfer and spirit refining great art I had taken from them, my soul would never have strengthened so easily, and the first crude version of the system would have come far later. I admitted I had left in too much of a hurry last time to ask their names. I could have simply pulled the information through the system and chose not to. In my eyes, there was no need, since they were not my enemies. My bottom line bends more than most. But some lines I will not touch. The first crossing invites a second. A man who keeps crossing loses his original heart and watches his whole state of mind cave in. The twins looked thoroughly awkward, caught disheveled in front of me a second time. They struggled up and bowed, naming themselves the Black and White Twin Swords, Ye Hienzo, and So Yoguang. They thanked Hero Yu for their lives and begged pardon for offending me before. I waved it off and asked how they had ended up crossing swords with the demonic cultivator. The question lit anger in both of them. Ye Hienzo ground out that they had been passing through to promote the system seed. The demonic cultivator had slaughtered all 300 people of the village ahead and used their blood to feed his technique. By the time they arrived, not a soul in the whole village was left alive. They had tried to kill him, but he had just broken through his realm, and they were no match. He said that without me they would have died there too. My face turned to frost. I am no gentle man. The lives stained on my hands, direct and indirect, run into the millions. But every killing of mine carried a reason, and I have never cut down ordinary people for nothing. The men who ran the blood demon art had snuffed out their own humanity. They treated innocent commoners as spirit pills to be consumed, no better than beasts, and they had long since earned the name enemy of the human race. When Little Yellow caught up, I told him in a low voice to come to the village ahead, in case anyone had survived. We buried the whole village together, and then I parted from the twins and went on alone. The dead sat heavy on me, and my thoughts kept circling one hook. I meant to drag out whoever was spreading the blood demon art. I told Little Yellow to act as my protector, and he snapped to full alert. I took out the blood demon art manual and loosed the law of destiny and the law of karma I had just comprehended. The light of the laws poured off my whole body, while the true force inside me drained away like water through a breached dam. With the manual as the key, I loosed the incantation to trace the cause and seek the effect, calling destiny to show its face. The void ahead shifted with a roar, and a sea of blood opened before me, its waves surging. Then a pair of blood-red eyes cracked open inside that sea. Their gaze ignored the infinite space between us and fixed directly on me. A frigid, killing intent stabbed through the endless void, straight into my soul. It hit like a lightning strike. I groaned and spat a mouthful of blood. The manual in my hand shattered inch by inch into drifting dust, and the illusion of the blood sea collapsed. Only a faint copper reek remained, to prove it had been real. Little Yellow rushed over, frantic at the sight of the blood, his eyes full of fear, asking if I was all right. I told him not to panic, that it was only a minor wound, and I circulated the Jongon creation technique to knit myself back together. The probe had confirmed my guess. The blood demon art was being spread by someone, and those eyes were a horror all their own, able to wound me across the endless void with a single look. I wondered whether their owner was the blood demon who forged the art in the first place. If so, why had a being that terrible ended up suppressed? Who on earth had the strength to do the suppressing? A chill ran down my spine. This cultivation world was far more dangerous than its surface let on. and everything I had seen so far was only the tip of the iceberg. One careless step from here could damn me forever. Little Yellow asked in a small, shaken voice whether that had been the legendary sea of blood. He admitted those eyes had left him trembling. I patted his dog head and told him it was too early to say. The owner of those eyes was almost certainly still trapped and unable to come out. Given enough time, I would surpass him and kill him outright, not merely suppress him. My aura affirmed as I said it. Little Yellow nodded hard and swore that next time we would beat the thing down so it could never flip over again. I laughed and said it was about time we picked up the pace and made for the capital. He got excited, chirping that the 3-month deadline was nearly here, and that Master would surely pound this immortal master into paste. I shook my head at that. I reminded him that Zhang Sajie held a golden core cultivation, so it would not be simple, and I would have to give the fight everything. Outside the Jin state capital, on the vast fallen leaf plain, a crowd gathered like a rising tide. Over 1 million people packed the ground, craning their necks. They had come to witness one earth-shaking duel. The peak clash between the martial artist Yu Il and the nation-guarding immortal master Zhang Sajie. Its pull had long spilled past national borders. It tugged at every heart in the Jin state, and the surrounding nations sent people to watch. Those who could not come in the flesh followed through the system's live broadcast. Rows of temporary houses and camps had gone up around the plain, and the high officials and great Jianghu leaders all moved in. The gambling dens had opened their books early, with staggering odds. They paid 5 to 1 on me, and only even money on Zhang Sajie, every wager settled in energy points. Even so, the crowd stacked its chips on the immortal master. How could a mere martial artist stand against a cultivator? As the hour neared and I still had not appeared, the crowd grew restless, heads turning, no sign of me anywhere. The talk soured into scorn and pity. Some sneered I had chickened out and disgraced every martial artist alive. Others insisted I was no coward and must have hit trouble on the road. A few murmured that the immortal master's strength was unfathomable, and that a martial artist who showed up might simply lose his life. Inside the Jin State Court encampment, Zhang Sajie sat with 2 guests. One was the Wool State Nation guarding immortal master, Im Zhang. The other was the Fire Kingdom Nation guarding immortal master, Li Yom. Zhang Sajie asked, plainly puzzled, why 2 of them had traveled for an ordinary competition. Im Zhang said calmly that nothing much was going on. He had heard Zhang Sajie meant to duel a martial artist and came to watch the fun. Li Yom laughed and admitted the system was spreading like wildfire through the Fire Kingdom. He was curious just how strong this #1 host really was. Zhang Sajie's eyes flickered, and he understood them at once. They had both bound systems of their own. They dared not stop the spread, for fear of being unbound and losing the opportunity. So they had come to gauge me. Im Zhang nodded without shame, admiration in his voice, and admitted that nothing could be hidden from fellow Taoist Zhang. A duel that looked decided in advance actually carried extraordinary weight. Win and Zhang Sajie would deter every host and steady the Jin state throne. The same logic held for the Wolf state. Li Yom added, solemn, that the system's spread had become an unstoppable trend. Since they could not halt it yet wished to keep their courts standing, the duel truly mattered. Rare free time or not, they wanted to see it with their own eyes. Zhang Sajie's aura surged then, bearing his late Golden Core stage strength. He declared, proud that he had climbed to the late Golden Core stage and would certainly take this fight. Li Yom sucked in a shocked breath. Li Yom said fellow Taoist Zhang must have profited enormously from the system to advance so far so fast. Im Zhang, just as astonished, asked where he had gotten the immense pile of energy points such a breakthrough demanded. A smug curl rose at the corner of Zhang Sajie's mouth. He said he had simply had the emperor step forward and use gold and silver treasures to buy energy points off the common people, trading a little worldly wealth for cultivation resources. Why would he not? Im Zhang pressed a hand to his forehead and laughed bitterly. So it could be run that way. He had buried himself in cultivation so long his brain had gone stiff. He had never imagined letting mortals bind the system could pay dividends like this, and how shallow that made him. There it was, the whole ballgame. 3 immortal masters, realizing you can outsource your grind by making the peasants buy your premium currency for you. That was my plan, wearing their faces. Li Yom glanced at the sky beyond the door and sneered. The hour was nearly up and I still had not shown, so I most likely did not dare. Im Zhang chimed in that fellow Taoist Zhang might not even need to lift a hand, subduing the enemy without a fight. Zhang Sajie smiled, disdain threading his voice. He had rather looked forward to meeting the man who called himself the #1 host. Instead, he had found a coward who would not even step into the ring. Li Yom said it was only natural. However impressive I sounded, I was still just a martial artist, and the Tao Seed system could not stand in the same league as immortal cultivation. All three of them nodded along. Elsewhere in that crowd, the ones who believed in me were losing their nerve. Seo Wang frowned and worried aloud whether I really had not dared to come. Seo Sangan shook his head fast and insisted it could not be so, since they had all dealt with me and knew I was no timid man who fled a fight. So Wandang insisted firm that something must have delayed me on the road. At the cultivator's tomb, I had put down golden humanoid puppets and zombies and a handful of moves. How could I possibly fear a cultivator who sat only at the golden core realm? Wan Sun Ya looked drawn and said the competition was too important. If an accident kept me away, the Tao Seed practitioners would never lift their heads again. Meng Jiheo let out a helpless breath and asked why. With a fight this important, I was late. As the last of those words fell, a voice rolled across the plain. It apologized for the wait and said I had been delayed on the road, but had thankfully not missed the hour. My figure sped in from the distance. In a blink, I stood in the air above the fallen leaf plain, spine straight, my gaze sweeping the packed ground below. The truth was simpler than any of their theories. 2 days back, passing a small village, I had heard its river was haunted. It was the first talk of a vengeful ghost I had run into in this world. Naturally, I got curious. It seemed worth catching a water ghost to see what the thing was made of. Catching it cost me almost no time. I struck the water apart with one palm, then reached in and seized the water ghost before it could react. What ate my 3 months was the research, because I lost myself in it and forgot the hour. Only Little Yellow's reminder kept me from missing the duel outright. The reason I sank so deep was simple. Studying the water ghost, I had caught a glimmer of inspiration, and I sat just one last layer from comprehending the law of the soul. A breakthrough that rare pulled me under. In the end, my work paid off, and I grasped a trace of the law of the soul, though the water ghost suffered soul flying away and spirit scattering for it. Across the full 3 months of travel, I never once stopped. With the subsystem computing power matrix carrying the load, I had comprehended a trace of the law of destiny and the law of the soul. On top of them, I comprehended 56 more great Tao laws, a haul well past what I had hoped. Wandering the world proved far more efficient than my old days at the world-saving medical hall. I had banked 1,271 great Tao laws now, nearly halfway to the 3,000. Yet all that comprehension barely moved my combat power, since my realm still sat too low to unleash it. The plane roared to life the moment I appeared. Some crowed they had said all along I would come, and no one had listened. Others allowed that beating the immortal master was near impossible, but that simply not freezing up would earn face for martial artists. Seo Wang laughed out loud, thrilled that I had finally arrived. So Wandang's eyes lit, and she said she had known I would come, only delayed by something on the road. Zhang Saje stepped out onto the air from the court station, light blooming under each footfall, and laughed. He said he had thought I would not dare show my face. Since I had come, he would let me see how strong he truly was. A cultivator's power was nothing my crippled little Tao Seed system could measure against. I kept my face flat. I told him I hoped his methods were as sharp as his tongue, my gaze steady on him like a torch. The man across from me had been an inner sect disciple of the Heavenly Revelation sect, one of heaven's proud sons. I had been an outer sect disciple of that same sect, one who could not reach foundation establishment and got expelled. 2 men once as far apart as clouds and mud, now standing across a plain to settle it. 30 years east of the river, 30 years west of the river, and never bully the poor for being young. Then I felt the spiritual energy massing around Zhang Saje, and my heart jolted. He stood at the late golden core stage, past the middle stage I had braced for. My expression went serious. This was my first time facing a golden core cultivator straight on, and his true depth was still unknown. Cautious as ever, I decided to hold back only my divine ability and throw everything else in. Zhang Saje warned me coldly to yield now and keep my life, since he would not hold back once we truly fought. I told him that life and death rested with fate, and wealth with heaven. Since I had come prepared, so there was no need for more words, only the fight. At that, his spiritual energy whipped up around him. His fingers flew through arcane seals, and a flying sword blinked into being out of empty air. He lifted his sword finger, and the blade shot at me like a bolt of lightning. I ran every drop of my true force into the 5 elements' palm. The power of the 5 elements gathered out of heaven and earth, and condensed into a giant palm 100 meters tall. It slammed down on the flying sword. The pressure alone crushed the air into sonic cracks, and the sword was batted aside. The palm did not slow for an instant, pressing straight down on the terror-struck Zhang Saje. He threw up a spiritual energy shield, and his precious armor flared with treasure light, but both looked like paper under that weight. The next breath he was slapped out of the sky into the earth. Dust flew, the ground heaved, and a palm-shaped crater opened with him pinned at its floor. I froze where I stood and swept my divine sense through the crater again and again. It was truly his own body down there. No substitution technique. No sign of escape. Once I was sure he was wholly suppressed, a strange daze came over me. Was it really that simple? One palm to put down a late golden core cultivator? Either he was too weak, or I was too strong. Under the 5 elements giant palm, Zhang Saje's skull rang and his whole body screamed with pain. The injuries ran so deep he had lost any hope of fighting on. Had he not raised his shield and armor in the last instant, he would likely have died on the spot. Most of his bones were shattered, and even with healing pills the mending would take time. Worse than the pain was the fact of it. A dignified cultivator had been beaten in a single move by a martial artist and driven into the dirt, all his confidence slapped out of the air along with him. In the Jin state stands, the teacup fell from Im Jung's hand and shattered, tea splashing wide. He stared, his face full of disbelief. How could a mere brute of a martial artist suppress a late golden core cultivator with one palm? Li Yom scrubbed at his eyes, his voice shaking, saying it made no sense at all. Im Jung muttered half to himself, hollow-eyed. Was the Dao Seed martial arts system truly this powerful? Or was I simply too strong? If I could pin Zhang Saje like that, then dealing with him would cost me nothing. The thought broke Im Jung out in a cold sweat, his back gone icy. He had nearly ordered the system banned once. Only an extra grain of caution, a personal test, had talked him out of it.